My wife demanded I watch her cheat right in front of me, so I got my revenge. Reading the memo brought back memories I wish to forget. Amy, my faithful but cheating ex-wife, is now my boss. How ironic. I should have expected this, but I was just relieved to be out of the marriage. Now it's haunting me even more. Amy once said I was a heart attack waiting to happen, and she was right. My doctor had warned me, but I ignored it, thinking my hard work for the family was justified. Amy was always ambitious, craving luxuries like our mansion, the pool, and an unused country club membership. It was my duty to provide, or so I believed. The love of my life is now in charge of my life again. This realization snapped me out of my apathy. I couldn't work under her, not after learning about her affairs. I packed my things, picked up my resignation letter, and left the office for the last time, leaving the letter, phone, car keys, and credit card on Megan's desk. It's been a pleasure working with you, Megan. I wish you the best. You're a valuable employee, and I appreciate all your help. Take care, and don't let her mess with you. If she does, use me as a threat to get fair treatment. So you're really leaving, Sam? This isn't just a threat, she asked, waving my letter. Yes, Megan. You know I can't work for someone I don't respect. With all those horrible details, she's lost any chance of my respect. I'll miss you, Sam. She'll be furious when she finds out. She's been pestering me about your workload. I didn't tell her anything, but I felt like I was betraying you. I'm sorry, I should have spoken up sooner. I smiled. Don't worry. You have to protect your job. There's nothing you could have said to change things. I knew it was over when the merger memo came. I have no secrets here, as you know. What should I say when she asks where you are? Tell her the truth. She won't be able to twist it. Do what she wants as long as it doesn't compromise your values. It was my pleasure, dear. I'll stay in touch, I said, shaking her hand and kissing it. As I was getting into my car, a black limousine arrived at the office, and Amy stepped out with two well-dressed men, looking every bit the high-status businesswoman. In reality, though, we all knew she was just a well-paid escort with a title. She looked professional in her business suit, but she always looked good in any outfit. She didn't see me, which was perfect. I waited a couple of minutes for her to enter the building before leaving the parking lot for the last time. I had settled my affairs, sold what I needed, and put everything else in storage. My doctor had advised a change of scenery, and I finally took his advice. I spent the next 3 months traveling, sightseeing, and taking a break from work stress. Eventually, I ended up in a small town with a temperate climate, friendly residents, and excellent fishing. I rented a small, 3-bedroom cottage with a workshop by the lake, with an option to buy. It had everything I needed to start fresh. Sitting on the back porch, sipping a cold drink, I wondered how Amy reacted to my disappearance. I decided to call Megan the next day to find out. Hey Megan, it's Sam. How's it going over there? Sam, it's so good to hear from you. I was starting to worry you'd disappeared. I laughed. Sitting on my deck, watching the water. Not quite vanished, but the view here is amazing. Wish you were here. How's everything there? Sam, you sure know how to stir things up. Amy has been causing chaos, laying people off left and right. Kevin Paxton quit last week after she moved him to a windowless basement office. He couldn't stand it and resigned. I'm sorry to hear that. Kevin was one of the best. What is Amy thinking? She's going to ruin everything. How is she treating you? Megan chuckled. She's frustrated. She tried to fire me because I let you go without her talking to you first. I told her she could try to fire me, but I'd take her and the company to court. I reminded her of what you said, and she backed off, realizing her actions could backfire. Megan giggled and continued. So now I'm the secretary to the demanding executive VP of operations. I guess it's about keeping your enemies closer. I told her I wanted a substantial pay raise with the promotion. She wasn't happy, but just grinned. In the end, I got what I wanted. Megan updated me on the latest office gossip. I was glad my departure had disrupted Amy's plans. I changed my life for my own good, and Amy's presence pushed me to stop procrastinating. This was just a bonus. However, I worried it might affect everyone else, which wasn't my intention. The next morning, I ran out of sugar and decided to visit a nearby store. Their lot borders mine with an open paddock in between. As I left the store, I almost bumped into a young couple. After apologizing, I noticed a stressed woman in her early 20s behind the counter. "Can I help you?" she asked, as the baby started whimpering and a couple of cars pulled up to the gas pumps. She sighed. "Where is Jillian when I need her?" I smiled and said, "Can I help? I'm Sam and I live nearby. It looks like the baby needs attention and I just need some sugar. I can help out until you're done or until Jillian arrives. Why don't I handle the customers while you take care of your baby?" She smiled back. "I'm Vivian and I'd be very grateful for your help, Sam." I took care of the travelers while they filled their tanks, washing windshields and chatting with them. After collecting their payments, I returned to the store, where another customer had just walked in. I went over to chat with him. "What can I do for you, sir?" "Just looking at your fishing rods," he replied. "I'm on a business trip, and my car's in for repairs. It'll take all day, so I thought I'd do some fishing to pass the time." He looked like a businessman, much like I was a year ago. Seeing he was about to buy cheap gear, I asked, "Do you fish often?" He shook his head. "Not really, but I'd like to if I had time." I smiled and convinced him that investing in better equipment would increase his chances of catching fish and enjoying his time. I then helped a dozen other customers before Vivian finished settling her daughter. "Thank you so much, Sam. Why does it always get busy when you least expect it? Bessie doesn't usually fuss now, and Jillian is always here by this time." I grinned. To explain it, I'd need to understand quantum mechanics, which I don't. Maybe you need more reliable help. Vivian's face fell, and I quickly apologized, realizing I'd upset her. With sad eyes and a tear, she said, "Sam, it's not your fault, but I'm a widow." Vivian told me her husband, Greg, an Army reservist, had been eliminated in a training accident. His truck flipped over, and he died, never knowing he was going to be a father. Bessie was likely conceived the night before he left. Wiping her tears, Vivian said, "He would have been a good father. He had so many ideas, and this place was one of them," gesturing to the store and land. Over the next few weeks, I often helped out at the store. I know what you're thinking, and you're probably right. Vivian was beautiful, and my hormones had been dormant for a while, but it also restored my sense of self-worth. Amy's infidelity had made me feel unneeded and inadequate as a provider. That was the final insult. Vivian seemed to understand my need to help. She never directly asked for it, but always appreciated it. Spending time with her made me feel good. She was fun, caring, and grateful, which was exactly what I needed. I was heading home from another day at the store when my phone interrupted my thoughts. "Hi, Sam. Lucky you're not a secretary. You wouldn't last a day with your phone manners," a woman's voice purred. "Hi, Megan. You caught me off guard. It's almost 7 p.m. Is something urgent?" Megan's tone changed. "I waited until I got home to call because I think my work phone is tapped. Sam, you need to be careful. She hired a private investigator to follow you. She asked me to set it up, and I can't refuse without risking my job, but I wanted to warn you so you can lay low." I sighed. "Is she trying to intimidate me to death?" "I don't know, Sam. She's stressed, working long hours to turn things around. She looks older and has gained weight. She can't be pregnant, or maybe could, but not by me." Megan giggled. "No, it's from stress and comfort eating. She's frantic to find you and blames me for letting you leave without talking to her." Good grief. Ignoring her is useless. Here's an idea. In a week, give her a fake report saying the investigator couldn't find me but confirm my phone is active. Tell her you convinced me to talk to her. Megan sounded hesitant. "Are you sure, Sam? I don't feel good about this." "Don't worry, Megan. Look after yourself first. I appreciate your help, but don't put yourself at risk." A week later, Megan texted me before work, "PHBB Dave, ready for call today sometime." I chuckled at the acronyms. BB was for bad boss. Damn these young people and their tech. I wondered what I'd say to Amy, but decided to figure it out when the time came. As promised, the call came. I answered Amy's number. "Yes, Amy, what do you want?" She seemed caught off guard by my abrupt greeting. "What's that cow my secretary been up to?" I hung up. The phone rang again. "Damn it, Sam," I hung up again. The next call, Megan quickly answered. "Are you going to talk to her or not?" I grinned. "Tell her to be polite next time and she might get more than 2 words out of me. I'm sick of her attitude." Megan chuckled. "My pleasure, Sam. Talk to you later." 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. "Sam." "Yes, Amy, what do you want?" A pause. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" "I'm listening." Another pause. Megan cried on your shoulder. "What did she say?" "Megan is very capable. It doesn't matter what she told me. Your so-called secretary is the only reason you're talking to me now. You should be grateful to her." "So what do you want?" I thought I heard a sigh. "I'm sorry, Sam. I'm just a little cranky lately. I know Megan is doing a good job and I appreciate it." Amy was trying to diffuse my irritation, but I wondered why she gave in so quickly. "Get to the point, Amy. What do you want?" I heard Amy suppress a sob. "I really need your advice, Sam. I thought we would work together as a team, but you quit and disappeared before I could explain." I snickered. "I saw the writing on the wall, Amy. When your company bought mine, I didn't see the point in staying to be humiliated again. So have a happy life, Amy. Goodbye." "No, please, Sam. I need to talk to you in person, not over the phone. Just give me 30 minutes to pitch my idea. I'm begging you. I don't know who else to turn to." I gritted my teeth, wanting to hang up and forget her. After a long pause, I finally said, "Okay, Amy, but I'm not chasing you. You come to my office. I'll arrange it with Megan and she'll let you know when and where." I hung up before she could respond and half expected her to call back, but the phone stayed silent all night. Amy was annoyed. "Why do I have to go through Megan? Why can't you just give me Sam's address so I can go alone?" Megan gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles turning white. "Amy, this is what Sam wants. He doesn't want to see you. In his words, my way or the highway. I don't enjoy sitting in the car with you for hours either, but if he wants me to bring you, you'll have to deal with it. I won't be there for your conversation, though. I'll make myself scarce." I started chopping vegetables for the Italian sauce I was making for dinner. Megan had called 30 minutes ago to let me know they'd arrive soon, which meant they'd be here in about 20 minutes. I wanted Amy to feel uncomfortable, so I stayed busy to put her at a disadvantage. 15 minutes later, I heard a knock. "It's open. Come in." "Well, don't you look completely at home," remarked Megan with a genuine smile. I chuckled. "Hi, Megan. Good to see you too. You look good." I saw Amy standing behind her, looking worried. "Amy." That was all I said, but I noticed her tired eyes and weight gain. Megan's estimate of 10 lbs might have been a bit harsh, but it wasn't far off. "I could use a drink," Megan said, giving me a friendly hug and a kiss on the cheek. "The country air suits you. You look great." "There's wine, beer, or Coke in the fridge," I replied, holding up my grubby hands. "Want something to drink?" I glanced at Amy. Amy noticed my cold tone and lowered her head, realizing this meeting would be tough. "Hi, Sam. Wine would be nice. Megan's right, you look good." Megan opened a bottle of white wine, poured 2 glasses, and handed one to Amy. "Which way to the view?" she asked, waving the wine bottle. "I'll leave you two alone. Remember," she pointed the bottle at me, "I'm not here to clean up a crime scene, so behave." I smiled and pointed to the back door. "Don't worry about me. There's a fishing rod on the deck if you want to try it out." Megan rolled her eyes. "Not likely. I wouldn't know what to do with a fish even if I caught one," she said as she slipped out the door, leaving Amy and me alone. "Take a seat and tell me why you're here," I said, pointing to a chair and returning to chopping herbs. Amy hesitantly sat down, trying to lighten the mood. "Nice place you have here. Small but nice." I tensed, my irritation showing. "This isn't small talk, Amy," I said, focusing on the basil. "Just say what you need to, and we can get back to our lives." Amy sighed and took a sip of wine. "Can I ask one question?" "Ask as many as you want, Amy. Doesn't mean I'll answer, but try." "Why did you leave?" she asked, watching for any sign of anger. Knowing my temper, she could see I was trying to stay calm. I dropped the knife and turned to her. "You don't need a degree to understand my motives, Amy. You're a vice president now. You must have some brains. Figure it out." Amy looked irritated. "That was a low blow even for you, Sam. I'm capable of doing my job, but I'm not a mind reader." I folded my arms and stared at her. Amy seemed to wilt under my gaze. "You're right, Amy. You're not a mind reader, and few people are. But in your job, you need to read people, understand, and guess their motives. A good manager finds and utilizes their employees' talents for the company's benefit. It has to be a win-win situation. Do you really want to know what I think of you and your talents?" She shivered at my question, clearly expecting an answer that wouldn't boost her confidence, but she squared her shoulders. "Okay, Sam, I'll bite. What do you think of my corporate talents?" I almost laughed at her weak attempt at teasing and returned to cooking. "You're a bulldozer, Amy. You have the finesse of a bull in a china shop." Her open mouth said it all. "Bulldozer?" she repeated, stunned. "Care to elaborate on that?" I smiled inwardly as I continued chopping. "Yes, Amy, bulldozer. You take the most direct path to your goal without considering the effort or analyzing the situation. You don't think about who you can help or who can help you. You only think about yourself, charging ahead and ignoring anyone in your way. That's why you're in your current, unenviable position. You've burned bridges and ruined opportunities." I saw a tear in her eye for the first time. She seemed at a loss. "No, I don't want to," she said weakly. "Everything I did was for us, but your ego got in the way. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. If you had stayed, I could have explained my plan. You still haven't told me why you left." I tasted the sauce and added more salt. "I saw the writing on the wall, Amy. I know you're here to cut the dead wood. You're the person sent to remove those who needed to go for the company to move forward. I agree it was necessary. I just made it easier for you to make those decisions." I saw the anticipation in her eyes. This was the conversation she wanted. "Sam Beckman, for a smart man, you sure do some stupid things. I had no intention of firing you. If you were smart, you'd know that everything I did was for us, to make your dreams come true. That's quite a trick. It tugs at my heartstrings and strokes my ego simultaneously. But I never said you weren't good at stroking. I remember countless times we sat in the kitchen talking about how the fools at the top were ruining the company. I believed in you, Sam. I believed you could get the company back on its feet. Now I have the chance to help you turn your ideas into reality. I worked hard to give you that chance, telling my bosses I could make your company profitable. And what did that get me?
Now it's the "it's all your fault" angle.
You've left me to my fate without hearing me out. I keep fighting, working long hours on what you said could be done. All I need is a little help from the one man I've ever loved. It's you, Sam. We can sit back and reap the rewards of our efforts. I love you, and this is our future. I'm not naive enough to think we'll get back together, though I dream about it. But I see now that we can have a good business relationship and be happy. So what do you say? How about we call a truce, start working together, and show them we're a force to be reckoned with? Amy took another sip of wine and leaned back, her fervor fading. She had made her point, and now it was up to me. While she talked, I finished the sauce and put water on to boil for the spaghetti. The only thing I could think of were Julius Caesar's last words, "Et tu, brute?" Betrayal was my first thought when I found out about her actions. Despite everything, Amy was very attractive. One thought kept me sharp, encapsulating her past and present actions. Good, Amy. A good manager considers all aspects before deciding. Let's say I buy into your brilliant plan. Why do you think I can help you? Amy's eyes flashed with annoyance. I've told you, I believe you can do it. You have the credibility within the company to get the support of the employees. They trust and respect you. Your obstacles were with upper management, and my position as VP has removed them. I smiled sadly at her naivety. You don't see that your very presence as VP undermines my ability to gain support. But I'm not surprised. You refuse to believe you've done anything wrong. Others see it differently, Amy. I saw the concern on Amy's face as I continued. Have you ever wondered why you struggle to gain support for your ideas? The rumor mill has done a thorough job informing everyone about your business practices and ethics. And not a word of it came from me. Amy's face froze. I was treading into territory she wanted to avoid. People see you as someone who slept her way to the top, leaving more deserving employees in the dust. They know about our failed marriage and how I kept my dignity and their respect by divorcing you. If I accepted your offer, it would signal that everything you did was acceptable. I'd go from a wronged husband to a disgraced employee, losing their respect and my effectiveness. Tears formed in Amy's eyes as my words sank in. Her confidence was cracking. I don't believe you, Sam. I've shown I'm willing to work hard. I took a powerful position to get the job done. I'm capable, or Jason wouldn't have given me the job. I shook my head, my anger turning to sadness. Amy truly believed her own narrative, perhaps out of self-preservation. Did Jason approach you with the takeover offer, or did you push him? Amy wiped her face with a tissue from her purse and straightened up hopefully. It doesn't matter what you or anyone else thinks. I'm not Jason's puppet. I approached him, and he put up a lot of barriers before letting me present my proposal to the board. I nodded. Just as I thought. Did Jason entertain you when he finally let you speak to the board? Her sigh gave her away. Trying to gather her thoughts, she asked, "Why do you think that?" I grinned. Do you know why I was good at my job, Amy? I've always made profiles of everyone I meet, including you. My mistake was trusting you unconditionally because I loved you. That cost me dearly, so I adjusted your profile. As my grandfather said, there's no point in getting older if you're not getting smarter. I assess people by their words and actions to see if they fit their profile. Knowing Jason, I doubt he cares if you succeed. If you fail, he'll blame the board for approving your proposal. I saw a glimmer of realization in her eyes as I continued. If you succeed, Jason gets the credit for bringing in a promising executive. If you fail, he'll just point fingers at the board. Jason doesn't care if you're smart enough or foolish enough to think you can pull this off. As long as you keep him entertained, he'll be satisfied. You're on your own, Amy, a small fish in a big pond full of hungry piranhas. Amy clutched the napkin tightly. Everything I'd said was true, and she seemed frightened by the reality of her situation. But she still tried to deny it. So you don't think I can do it? I shrugged. No, Amy, I know you can't. I saw anger build in Amy, but continued. It would take a huge Saturn V rocket to launch you from your VP position into corporate oblivion. Where will your precious security be then, Amy? I turned away to calm myself. From what I hear, you've only managed to spin your wheels and create so much smoke that everyone else struggles to do their jobs. I'll be surprised if the next shareholders meeting doesn't announce a 25% drop in profits, but that's just speculation. No matter how you spin it, it all comes down to your reasons for starting this. You said you loved me and did it for both of us. Amy shuddered but nodded. But really, it's all about your safety, not ours. If you loved me, you would have tried to stop me from working myself to death. You called me a heart attack waiting to happen. I paused, then continued. You didn't try to stop me, or if you did, it wasn't convincing. You just waited for me to drop dead. You could have threatened divorce to make me think about us. Your infidelity made me realize things. That's why I'm here now and feeling great. I love you, Sam. I didn't want to divorce you. You didn't want to divorce me, but you were willing to let me work myself to death. Does that sound loving? I finished sarcastically. Amy couldn't refute my arguments and couldn't bear to look at me. I didn't mean what I said then, and I love you even now. I regret a lot of what I said, Amy pleaded. My grim face must have shown doubt. I'm sure you believe what you're saying, Amy, but that doesn't change our situation. Don't you realize I can't trust you now, either personally or in business? I've decided to end this discussion. You made it to the top. Now you'll have to wait for Jason to retire or disappear before you can aim for CEO. You've decided this is a good time to solidify your position and go for that coveted role. Amy tried to object, but I stopped her. Your plan is clear. Take over my old firm and get me to work hard again to benefit you. I'm amazed you expected me to follow your orders. When I kicked you out, I thought it was clear I wasn't weak. Maybe it was my fault for setting you up to fail. I saw Amy struggling to hold it together. One moment, I blamed her. The next, I was taking responsibility. You're talking nonsense, Sam. I think you're the one with it backward, she countered. I hung my head and sighed in despair. Good, Amy. You've heard, being cruel to be kind. I wasn't being kind. I led you on and then had to cut you down harshly instead. I went to Jason and made him fulfill his promise to make you a VP. I didn't want to see you left to suffer, even though you deserved it. I made a mistake by making you think there was a chance I'd take you back. Your love cards on my birthday, Christmas, and other occasions proved that. I checked the sauce and added water to the nearly dry pot. If I did what I should have, you'd have disappeared to some unknown place to start over. That's what I want you to do now. Walk away and start over. Tears streamed down her face. You might have to go back to a secretarial job, but it won't be as bad as staying and fighting. You'll be lucky if you're allowed to lick stamps while some post office idiot entertains you. I watched as my words sank in. Her defiance, not humility, made me sad. I know I hurt you, Sam. I berate myself every day for it, but what you said is just evil. You don't believe in me, yet I believe in you. Well, if that's how you feel, watch, and I'll show you how it's done. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. Come in, I said irritably. Is everything okay, Sam? I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, Vivian asked. I sighed, realizing I'd lost my temper, and checked my watch. I'm sorry, Vivian, please don't come in. Amy was just leaving. I glared at Amy, waiting for her to get up. Amy looked at Vivian standing in the doorway. She was younger, maybe by 5 or 10 years, and very pretty, with long, flowing dark blonde hair. Amy's face showed her realization of why Vivian was here. She turned to me, saw the food simmering on the stove, and began to cry as she understood the situation. I glanced at the dinner I was making for Vivian and me, recognizing what Amy was thinking. What, you thought this was for you? I told you this wasn't a social event. Don't be upset that I invited a friend to dinner. We broke up years ago. The only reason I let you come here was to knock some sense into you. Amy stood up, head down, and rushed past Vivian, muttering, Tell Megan I'll be waiting in the car. I hope I didn't make things worse, Vivian said, watching Amy leave. I can go if you need to deal with this. Can I tell Jillian I don't need her as a babysitter? It's not your fault. I'm glad you showed up when you did. I hugged Vivian and kissed her cheek. You can watch the pasta for a minute. I need to tell Megan our meeting is over and she can take Amy home. I stepped out onto the back terrace and saw Megan napping in the afternoon sun. Amy's words echoed in my mind. Now that she was vice president, she had removed all the obstacles, blocking my ideas, and it got me thinking. How do you like the view? I asked. It's just like you said, Sam. Amazing, Megan smiled, closing her eyes. How did it go in there? I didn't hear any fire shots. Not well. She's not backing down. She's in the car, waiting for you. Can I ask you something? Sure, Sam, you can ask me anything. I smiled weakly. How do you see your future at work? How ambitious are you, Megan? Her eyes widened at the unusual question. I'm not sure what you're getting at, Sam, but if it's what I think, I'd like to get Amy's job first. She stood up. I know I can do it well, but I won't compromise my values. Why do you ask? I think it's time to end this circus, I said determinedly. Can you contact Kevin Paxton and meet me in town in 3 weeks? I might have an offer for both of you. Megan nodded. I led Megan back inside where she saw Vivian at the stove. She poked me in the ribs, whispering, "Now I see why Amy ran off, you old dog." Megan's look made me smirk. She's gorgeous and probably the final nail in Amy's coffin. Amy is out of her league, never was in her league. I'm not even in her league. She's hurt, her wounded pride right now. I nodded, appreciating Vivian's beauty. And she's just as lovely on the inside. Vivian looked up as I introduced Megan. "Nice to meet you. Sam has so many women in his life, I'm not sure he has room for me," she said hesitantly. Megan chuckled. "Don't worry about the other women you see Sam with. He's a one-woman man, sweetheart, and from what I can tell, he's got his eye on you. Watch out, though. Sam can be a real charmer when he's interested." I wasn't sure what Megan meant, as we hadn't been in social situations together. I felt my face redden. "I think you've said enough for one night, Megan. It's time to leave." I nudged her toward the front door. She looked back with a final comment. "If you're smart, Vivian, you won't let this guy slip away." She kissed me on the cheek and said goodbye. "Be smart. I'll see you in 3 weeks." Vivian and I sat on the back deck, sipping Merlot and watching the waterfowl. We chatted casually about the day, and I told Vivian the details of my failed marriage to Amy and its aftermath. "You don't want to do this, do you, Sam?" Vivian observed. "No, I don't," I admitted, "but it has to be done. I can't let everyone lose their jobs because I took the easy way out. I have no choice." After a pause, Vivian said, "You know, Amy still has feelings for you." I almost laughed. I knew that before, but I don't think so now, not after what I said to her today. I was harsh, but it didn't seem to matter. Vivian smiled. "For all your toughness, it's clear you care about others, Sam, including Amy. We women appreciate that quality in our men." I had no response, so I went back to my beer. Vivian patted my arm reassuringly. "I believe you'll do the right thing for everyone." I nodded with a grim feeling, "But I'm afraid not everyone will agree." "You didn't make her bed, Sam, she did, and now she has to lie in it," Vivian said, breaking the silence. After a couple of minutes, I was lost in my thoughts when she caught me off guard. "Speaking of beds, when are you going to show me yours?" Her statement came out of nowhere and surprised me. "Huh?" Vivian chuckled. "Megan told me that if I wanted you, I shouldn't hesitate. She said, 'If you're smart, Vivian, you won't let this guy out of your grasp.' So here I am, holding on to someone I think is worth it." "So you're interested in more than just a platonic relationship?" I sounded like a nervous teenager testing the waters. My poor track record with women making it hard to look her in the eye. Vivian giggled. "You're blushing, Sam." My ears burned, and a sheepish grin spread across my face. "You sure know how to make a guy feel awkward." I rubbed my face to regain my composure. "That day I walked into your store, saw you looking shattered, and offered my help. I felt like a knight in shining armor rescuing a damsel in distress." Her smile was priceless. "You were my knight on his trusty steed that day, and you still are," Vivian said, kissing my cheek affectionately. "Since that day, I've depended on you. Now I understand why you've supported me all these months." She paused, seeing my confusion. "It must have been hard when Amy showed you weren't needed." "Well, if it helps, I need you, Sam. I haven't felt this comfortable and relaxed since Greg died." "Yes, it's a man thing. Amy didn't understand it, and I couldn't explain it either." Vivian patted my arm reassuringly. "You've been good to me, Sam, and I appreciate it. It wasn't until Megan's antics that I realized I had more than friendly feelings for you. So, do you want to take it to the next level?" Vivian's face showed sincerity and hope. "Well, madam, if you insist, I shall have to show you my etchings," I said with a sly grin. Vivian's face lit up. "Forget the etchings. I'm more interested in the tool you used to make them." We both laughed as she stood up and headed for the door, saying, "Race you to the bedroom." Later, I saw Kevin and Megan watching me walk into the restaurant. My mood must have been obvious. Kevin stood up and offered his hand. "Long time no see, old friend. It's great to see you after all these years. You look 10 years younger." I smiled, shaking Kevin's hand. "It's good to see you too. I'm doing great. How's life?" "Ooh, average to average. Can't complain because no one ever listens," Kevin said. I smiled and kissed Megan on the cheek. "You look as radiant as ever. I don't know what you saw in this brute, but I hope he treated you well." Megan chuckled. "He may be rough, but I like the rugged type." "How do you know?" Kevin asked. I smiled. "Because I'm a people watcher." I saw your reaction when I asked Kevin to be here today. I think you two would make a formidable team." Kevin grinned. "Speaking of which, what's the offer?" I chuckled. "Straight to business, Kevin. You'll never change." "Okay, let's talk business. Then we can relax and enjoy the food." As the waitress served our drinks, I began, "The company is in serious trouble. If nothing is done soon, everyone will be looking for new jobs. As you know, options are limited. I pulled several folders from my briefcase and handed a white one to Kevin. Feel free to disagree or add anything. While Kevin studied the folder, I opened another. Here's a list of people you need to get on your side. I'll leave it to you to figure out how. Kevin flipped through the folder. It's clear you've thought this through. Not only are you targeting JPL and Amy, but also Dobson Inc. and Jason. I saw Kevin's expression and knew what he was thinking. We don't have a choice, Kevin. Since Dobson bought out JPL, we need to attack from both sides. My original focus was on JPL, but now we must target Dobson's board too. If you can get the board on your side and Megan handles JPL, we have a chance, albeit a small one. Kevin handed the folder to Megan. You're right, Sam's situation is more than dire. It's anorexic. But I see potential. It wouldn't hurt to involve Jack Deacon, he's a master at accounting. I nodded grimly. Jack is a genius with numbers, but we didn't get along. He never liked me. Megan nodded while looking through the folder. I agree with Kevin. Jack should be involved for his creative accounting skills. I'll talk to him first. Kevin picked up the second folder and examined the list of names. I'm not sure I can meet some of these people, let alone bring them on board. I smirked at Kevin's doubt. What do you think I've been doing for the last 3 weeks? There's one name, Slovak, that I couldn't get close to. If he's not on board, none of this will work. How did you become so influential? Influential, my back. If I were that good, Slovak would be on our side. I handed Kevin another folder. This is a list of meetings you have scheduled with everyone except Slovak. Megan looked up from the folder. Isn't Slovak Jerry Cambridge's uncle? Maybe Jerry can arrange a meeting with him. Kevin and I exchanged glances and shrugged. Kevin asked, Can you figure this out, Megan? Megan smiled. I have a meeting with Jerry tomorrow about the trip plans. I'll ask him then. This made me feel a bit better. I've organized the times and dates for you. Things are getting messy even in the higher levels of government. I outlined my concerns but didn't have a solid plan yet. We need to finalize the details and get everyone together to complete the final version. Megan shook her head. I can't believe Jason didn't see this coming. Oh, he knows, I scoffed. He just doesn't care. He has a scapegoat, and Amy's in for a nasty surprise when he betrays her. Megan wrinkled her nose sympathetically. Amy may be selfish, but she doesn't deserve that. I nodded. Jason will need to act before the next quarterly meeting to stay clean. We must act quickly and precisely. If we impress the big shots, we'll succeed. Kevin shook his head. You think we're going to accept your offer? I smiled. Come on, Kevin, think about it. What do you have to lose? If Amy could pitch her ideas, you can do it too. You haven't found a job that matches your skills, have you? I know you have issues with Amy, and Jason isn't on your Christmas list either. I nodded to Megan. She believes in you as much as I do. You'll run with it. I've done all I can. Now you just need to bring home the bacon. Kevin laughed along with Megan. All tied up with a neat pink ribbon, he said sarcastically. Megan frowned. What about Jason? He won't give up without a fight, and he has the support to sabotage us before we even start, she said, looking through the second folder. I grinned. Leave Jason to me. You won't have to deal with him. Just keep Amy busy so she doesn't do something stupid, like commit professional self-destruction while taking everyone else down. Megan smirked. After your conversation the other day, she's our least worry. Vivian's presence rattled her, and now she's determined to prove you wrong. You really messed with her head, Sam. I've had to tweak a lot of her proposals just to make her look somewhat competent. Kevin, Megan, and I enjoyed our meal while discussing our plans. As we said our goodbyes, we arranged to meet again in 2 days with others to finalize our strategy. The meeting was heated. Megan and Kevin had brought in a half-dozen allies to help. Jack Deacon was one of them, and as I predicted, he was hostile but listened. Let me see the financial packet, he demanded. We watched as he quickly reviewed the numbers. This is nonsense, Beckman. You can't substantiate these numbers. I wanted to snap at him, but managed to stay calm. They're just estimates, projected approximations. Deacon smiled sarcastically. Don't quit your day job, Beckman. These numbers are as unreliable as weather forecasts. It's time to show the money. I knew I had to handle him carefully. Listen, Deacon, can I call you Jack? I know we haven't seen each other since Amy took over, but you're here because you're the best at what you do. I could see his chest heaving, sensing I was on the right track. Jack grinned. I may seem like a mere laborer to you, but I'm not so socially inferior that I don't recognize being patronized. I gritted my teeth in annoyance. I know that sounded patronizing, but it doesn't make my words any less true. I addressed everyone in the room. What will you do when the next shareholders' meeting rolls around? I don't care if you agree with this proposal or not. I can leave and return to my life, letting you figure out how to get in line for unemployment. Jack, You're a genius with numbers and can get a job quickly, but what about them? We need you to get creative and make those projections work. I saw the gears turning in his mind. So this isn't some scam to move your wife up the corporate ladder? I shook my head sadly. No, Jack, she's my ex-wife. She'll be lucky to shuffle papers in a dark, windowless room if we pull this off. I regret not burning that bridge when I divorced her. I'm here to fix that mistake. Whether this takeover works or not, both she and Jason will be history. I guarantee it. Jack looked around the room and then back at the folder. You know, Sam, I've been doing so much with so little for so long, now I have the chance to do everything with nothing. He grinned widely. What's the deadline for this miracle? I looked at Kevin. I need it by 3 p.m. tomorrow, he replied cautiously. Holy crap, Jack exclaimed, eyes wide. I'm fine, Kevin, but even God would struggle to sort this out by then. We all exchanged glances, and I started to worry that my plan might fail. Then Jack said something surprising. If I pull this off, I want a sign on my desk that says, God, he joked. After a moment, Kevin grinned. I'll personally engrave it, and everyone will kneel and pay their respects if you bring me those numbers by 3 p.m. tomorrow. We all sighed in relief. Okay, folks, we're burning the midnight oil. Call whoever you need to and get to work. Megan asked if she could invite some of the girls from the typing group to help. It's your choice, Megan. Show us what you can do. I'm here to help with any questions, but it's up to you now, I said, handing control to her. Oh my God, she exclaimed, glaring at Kevin. Sam's right, honey. Pull yourself together and show everyone they can rely on you in a crisis. Kevin and I stepped back as Megan took a deep breath and got to work. Within an hour, she was organizing groups and brainstorming ideas. Jack argued with her until she snapped. I don't care how many people you need to bring in to meet the deadline, Jack. You know what we're up against, so just do it. Kevin chuckled. I think you were right, Sam. She is a hard worker. I smiled at Kevin's pride in her. I lightly slapped his arm. I never doubted it, Kevin. I tapped my temple in agreement and went to help. I walked into Jason's office past his shocked secretary. I'm sorry, sir, but you can't go in there. Jason waved her away in disgust. It's okay, Lynn. What's this Beckman invasion about? Clearly, Jason was upset to see me. That's no way to start a negotiation, Jason. I'd think a man of your business acumen would know when to be a bit more contrite. I wore a menacing smile. Jason sat back, waiting. I knew in a battle of wills, the first to speak loses. Jason, sweating, finally interrupted. Are you just going to stand there? Or are you going to tell me why you're here? I have a shareholders meeting in an hour. I'm here to help you pack, idiot, I informed him. And where am I supposed to go? Jason clearly didn't like how this was going. I don't care where you go as long as you're out of here by the end of the day, I said with a grin. But I'd suggest moving to another state, maybe even the other side of the country.
What if I refuse to leave?
I'm close to retirement and not giving up my lucrative package for someone like you. I shook my head. You have two choices. Resign now and walk away with what you have, or stay and watch me dismantle your life, including your family. You'll be lucky to afford a cup of coffee. Jason frowned. I did what you wanted. I made Amy vice president and she now controls JPL. Why the threats? We've never met, but I thought you kept your word. What changed your mind? Are you coming after me because of the past? I leaned forward, placing both hands on his desk, our faces inches apart. You changed my mind. I was holding up my end until you broke it. Now you pay. You screwed Amy over and let her present a doomed proposal to the board. You saw a chance to kill two birds with one stone, knowing she'd turn to me for help, and you knew I wouldn't. You broke our agreement, and now I demand payment. Sweat trickled down Jason's face as he listened, realizing everything I said was true. I didn't break our deal, Beckman. She came to me. I only gave her a chance to prove herself. If she's in this position, it's her fault. Don't crap me, you lowlife, I said, sweeping items off his desk in anger. You could have stopped her. Even a fifth grader could see she had no chance without your help. It was your choice, and you made the wrong one. Now fix it. Resign or watch your life get destroyed. Jason's face showed a range of emotions, and I enjoyed watching him struggle. I doubt you have enough on me to follow through on your threats, he said. I smiled, watching him mentally hit dead ends. Do you think I've been idle? I have dirt on your affairs, corporate fraud, embezzlement, and more. Your choice, jail or retirement. I saw realization dawn in his eyes as he understood his only option was to leave. Kevin Paxton is talking to your board right now with a plan that will ruin you. When I leave here, I'm handing everything I have to them. That broke Jason. He pressed the intercom. Lynn, come in with a pad and pencil. I need to dictate a letter. I walked to his wine cabinet and poured a scotch. No need to hurry, Jason, you win. I'll be gone by the end of the day. As I sipped my drink, his secretary entered and sat to take dictation. By the time he finished, she could barely contain her laughter and quickly left the office. Seeing her reaction, I knew Jason wouldn't have time to gather his belongings before leaving. As he exited his office for the last time, I called. Out. I hear the weather is nice at the South Pole this time of year. I won't be looking for you there. Have a good day, Jason. Lynn returned a few minutes later and hugged me. Thank you, Mr. Beckman. Thank you so much. I pulled back, confused. Why are you thanking me? Tears welled up in Lynn's eyes. Jason tried to blackmail me. He's been making advances, just hints so far, but I think he planned to push harder if I didn't comply. I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you've done. I was furious that Jason had behaved this way. I knew Amy had served her time, and now Jason was targeting Lynn. I decided his fate was sealed, and his marriage was likely in jeopardy. If all goes well, he will just ask you to do your job well. He's a fair and honest man who values employee loyalty. Lynn kissed me on the cheek. You're on my Christmas list now, and I'll try to talk my husband into naming our next son after you. She grinned. Thanks again for your help. She handed me the envelope. Typing this letter was the most fun I've ever had. 6 months later, I walked into the same office Jason had left. Good morning, Lynn. Is the boss in? Good morning, Mr. Beckman. Yes, Mr. Paxton is expecting you. As I reached for the door, she added, Mr. Beckman, you were right. He's everything a secretary could want in a boss. Thanks again. I grinned as I opened the door. My pleasure, Lynn, and call me Sam. Mr. Beckman was my father. Lynn chuckled and waved. How does it feel to be CEO of one of the most profitable companies in the stock market, Sam, you old idiot? Where have you been? How are you? I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you've done for everyone, especially Megan and me. She still pinches herself every morning to make sure it's not a dream. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? How do you know that? Are you waking up next to her? Is a mini merger planned? I joked. Kevin shrugged. We're in the negotiation stage, but a deal is likely soon. Megan would love to have you at the signing. And I hear you have a little filly you're nursing too. I laughed. Exactly. You had a business to save. I had one to build. Vivian is a fine thoroughbred. If I get the chance, I'll hitch my wagon to her. As our banter subsided, Kevin asked more seriously, Have you heard about Amy? I grew solemn. Yes, Megan called when she was taken to the hospital. The stress was too much, and she snapped. Megan asked if I would visit her, but I thought it would only make things worse until she gets professional help. Kevin nodded. Yeah, you're probably right. Megan feels a bit sorry for her. She might offer Amy an entry-level position at JPL, maybe as a secretary. I hope that doesn't offend you. I shook my head. No, I don't hate her. I don't even like her anymore. She's just someone I once knew. I hope she gets better and moves on. Kevin leaned back. So no desire to come. Back? I could find you a good job with a great financial package. I grinned. Not a chance. Besides, you don't need me. From what I hear, you've got God working for you now. Kevin burst into laughter. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about Jack. He got his plaque and earned everyone's respect. You were right, he's a math genius. For a while, he was a hot shot. I'd walk into board meetings an hour before the shareholders' meeting with his financial report in hand. Kevin giggled. What's so funny? I asked. I was just thinking about how Jack looked when the girls would sneak up on him. We'll see how socially awkward he is when he tries to figure out women with math formulas. If he succeeds, I'll believe he's a god. I laughed. I would have loved to see that and attend the board meeting, but I had other business. While you were grooming board members, poor Jason was sweating at the table you now occupy. Kevin smiled. If you ever need a job, let me know. I shook my head. I have what I want now. Vivian and I have opened our family resort. I'm here to offer you corporate rates for Thanksgiving weekend. You could have contests and promote team building. Kevin nodded. I think we can agree. Maybe a fishing contest or two will foster camaraderie. Vivian and I were invited to Kevin and Megan's wedding, and now they have 2 wonderful boys. They are still a formidable team in the business world. At Christmas, we get cards from Lynn and her family. She even talked her husband into naming their next child after me. Her name is Samantha, short for Sam. Jason hasn't been heard from since his wife dumped his clothes on the lawn and turned on the sprinklers. His Elvis autographed guitar became a necklace for his favorite garden gnome after Nancy dropped it on his head. I assume he's hunting penguins in Antarctica to keep warm, but that's just a rumor. And Amy? After getting the help she needed to recover from what Jason did to her, she accepted Megan's offer for an entry-level secretary job. She sold her luxurious mansion and bought a modest apartment within walking distance of work. She'll never be part of the elite business environment again, but she has her own home and will work until retirement. I talked to her at the corporate Thanksgiving party at the lake. She was hesitant to come until Megan convinced her to unwind. We chatted, and she apologized for her arrogance, admitting she was out of line. I also apologized for jeopardizing her safety, but it was necessary to save everyone else's jobs. After therapy, she realized how flawed her thinking had been. She even laughed when I told her about Jason's downfall. She had a relaxing weekend, mostly sunbathing with coworkers. I don't know much about her social life, but Megan mentioned she occasionally dates but rarely stays in a relationship for long. Honestly, I don't have time to think about it. It's her life, and she has to live with it. 6 months later, Vivian and I got married and moved her and Bessie into my cottage. I watched as she took out a picture of her late husband, Greg, from her suitcase, kissed it, and placed it in a drawer. Touched, I walked over, pulled out a picture of Gloria, and placed it on her dressing table. Greg deserves to see his wife happy, well-groomed, and loved, don't you think? Vivian smiled tearfully and hugged me. You're a good man, Samuel. I think Greg and you would have been great friends. My guardian angel has been looking out for me, and now I have 2 soulmates. I felt splendid, better than I had in years. When Bessie is old enough, you'll have to tell her all about her father. They both deserve that. Our fishing resort is growing steadily. Jillian now has an apartment attached to the store, so we always know where to find her. We've added more cabins with docks for weekend fishing enthusiasts. I spend most days in my workshop doing boat repairs and general maintenance. Vivian runs the store, and Bessie, now 5, is always underfoot. I've become a father figure to her, the only one she's ever known. Last summer, we surprised her with a little brother, Brady, who has temporarily relieved her of some of our attention. I fuss over both of them, and even my doctor is pleased. Maybe I should send Amy a thank you card. Just kidding. My sister is my mom's golden child, and when I stand up for myself, my mom pushes me away. Then my perfect sister runs off with mom's money, leaving her heartbroken. I, 23 female, lived with my mom, 52 female, and elder sister, 26 female, in our family home. It had been this way ever since my dad passed away 5 years ago. My sister, let's call her Emma, was always mom's favorite. This wasn't just my imagination, it was pretty obvious to anyone who spent more than 5 minutes with our family. Growing up, Emma always got the newest clothes, the latest gadgets, and the most attention. Mom would attend all of Emma's school events, but when it came to mine, there was always some excuse. I'm too tired, or I have to work late, she'd say. It stung, but I got used to it. Things didn't change much as we got older. Emma went to a prestigious university to study law, while I chose to attend a local community college for my associate's degree in graphic design. Mom couldn't stop bragging about Emma to anyone who would listen. My Emma is going to be a big-shot lawyer one day, she'd say proudly. Meanwhile, my chosen career path was met with indifference at best and disappointment at worst. But the real issue wasn't just the favoritism, it was the unfair distribution of responsibilities at home. Since Emma was focusing on her studies, I was expected to take care of all the household chores. And when I say all, I mean all of them. Every morning, I'd wake up at 6 a.m. to start my day. First, I'd make breakfast for everyone. Mom liked her eggs sunny side up with toast, no crust. Emma preferred a veggie omelet with a side of fruit. I'd usually just grab a granola bar for myself as I rushed around. After breakfast, I'd clean up the kitchen, do the dishes, and start a load of laundry before heading out for my part-time job at a local coffee shop. I worked there to save up money for my own place and to contribute to the household expenses, even though Mom never asked Emma to chip in. When I'd get home in the afternoon, there was always more to do: vacuuming, dusting, mopping, you name it, I did it. I'd also be in charge of grocery shopping and meal planning. Mom had a lot of dietary restrictions, and Emma was picky, so this was always a challenge. Dinner was another production. I'd cook elaborate meals while Emma lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Mom would chat with her about her day, her studies, her future plans. I'd be lucky to get a word in sideways. After dinner, guess who was stuck with the cleanup? Yep, me again. And if I ever dared to complain or ask for help, Mom would give me this disappointed look and say something like, "Your sister needs to focus on her studies. She's going to have a bright future and take care of us all one day. The least you can do is help out around the house." It was exhausting, both physically and emotionally. I felt like a maid in my own home, constantly running around while Emma got to relax and enjoy herself. The worst part was that Mom didn't seem to notice or care about my efforts. It was always Emma this and Emma that. One particular day, things came to a head. It was a Saturday, and I had planned to meet up with some friends from college. We were going to work on a group project for our design class. I had been looking forward to it all week. Not just for the project, but for the chance to get out of the house and have some social interaction that didn't involve serving coffee or doing chores. I woke up early as usual to get my chores done before leaving. As I was making breakfast, Mom came into the kitchen. "Oh good, you're up," she said. "I need you to deep clean the living room today. The carpet needs shampooing, and the curtains need to be taken down and washed." I felt my heart sink. "But Mom," I protested, "I have plans today. I told you about my group project, remember?" Mom frowned. "Can't you reschedule? This is important. We're having guests over next week, and I want the house to look perfect." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I can't reschedule. We've been planning this for weeks. Maybe Emma could help with the cleaning?" As if on cue, Emma walked into the kitchen, still in her pajamas despite it being nearly 10 a.m. "Morning," she yawned, grabbing a muffin from the plate I had just set out. Mom's face softened as she turned to Emma. "Good morning, sweetie. Did you sleep well? Don't forget you have that online study group later." Emma nodded, her mouth full of muffin. Mom turned back to me, her expression hardening again. "Your sister has important studying to do. She can't be expected to clean. You know how crucial her education is." I felt something snap inside me. All the frustration, anger, and hurt that had been building up over the years came pouring out. "And what about my education?" I asked, my voice rising. "What about my plans, my life? Don't they matter at all?" Mom looked taken aback. "Of course they matter, but," I cut her off. "But not as much as Emma's, right? Never as much as Emma's." Emma, who had been watching this exchange with wide eyes, finally spoke up. "Hey, don't drag me into this. It's not my fault Mom asks you to do the chores." That just made me angrier. "No, it's not your fault. But you've never once offered to help. You just sit back and let it happen." Mom tried to intervene. "Now, let's all calm down. There's no need to." But I was on a roll now. Years of pent-up emotions were spilling out, and I couldn't stop them. "No, Mom, I'm done calming down. I'm done being the maid in this house. I'm done being treated like I'm less important than Emma. I'm done with the favoritism, the unfair expectations, all of it." I turned to Emma. "You want to know why Mom never asks you to do chores? It's because she thinks you're going to be this big success and take care of her in the future. That's a lot of pressure, isn't it? But hey, at least you get to relax now while I do all the work." Emma's face flushed. "That's not fair. I work hard at my studies." "And I don't," I shot back. "I'm working part-time, studying, and doing all the housework. When do I get to focus on my future?" Mom tried to step in again. "Sweetheart, you know we appreciate everything you do. It's just that Emma's career path is it's going to be more financially rewarding in the long run." Those words hit me like a slap in the face. "So that's it then? My worth to this family is measured by how much money I might make in the future?" Mom backtracked quickly. "That's not what I meant. It's just that law is a more stable career than what you're studying, graphic design." "Mom, I'm studying graphic design. Have you even bothered to learn anything about it, about what I want to do with my life?" The look on Mom's face told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't bothered. She'd written off my career choice without ever really understanding it. I felt tears stinging my eyes, but I blinked them back. I wasn't going to cry, not now. "You know what? I'm done. I'm not cleaning the living room today. I'm going to meet my friends and work on my project. And when I get back, we're going to have a serious conversation about how things run in this house, or I'm moving out." With that, I grabbed my bag and stormed out of the kitchen, leaving Mom and Emma staring after me in shock. As I slammed the front door behind me, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, hurt, but also a strange sense of relief. For the first time in years, I had stood up for myself. The rest of the day was a blur. I met up with my friends and threw myself into our project, trying to push the morning's confrontation out of my mind. But as the day wore on, doubt started to creep in. Had I overreacted? Was I being selfish? Maybe I should have just rescheduled my plans and done the cleaning as Mom asked. Update: I returned home late that evening, mentally exhausted from the day's events, but determined to have that serious conversation I'd promised. However, as soon as I walked through the door, I could feel the tension in the air. Mom and Emma were both in the living room, but they barely glanced at me when I entered. "Hey," I said hesitantly, "can we talk?" Silence. They both stared straight ahead at the TV, though I could tell neither was really watching it. I took a deep breath and decided to push forward anyway. "Look, I know this morning was intense, but I really think we need to address this. All I'm asking for is a little help from Emma with the household chores. It would make me feel like we're being treated equally." Finally, Mom turned to face me, her expression cold. "I think you've said quite enough already," Emma chimed in, her voice dripping with disdain. "Yeah, we heard you loud and clear this morning. You're jealous of me and my potential future. How selfish can you be? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Selfish? How is asking for help selfish? Mom shook her head. You're disrupting the peace in this house. Emma needs to focus on her studies. You're just jealous because you know your little hobby won't amount to much. Hobby? I repeated, incredulous. Graphic design is a real career, Mom, if you'd ever bothered to learn about it. Enough, Mom cut me off. I won't have you disrespecting us like this in our own home. I stood there, stunned. I'd hoped that maybe, just maybe, they'd have reflected on what I said and realized how unfair things had been. But instead, they doubled down. Our own home, I repeated softly. Right, well, I guess it's not my home anymore. Without another word, I turned and went to my room. I threw some clothes and essentials into a backpack, grabbed my laptop, and walked back out. Mom and Emma were still in the living room, steadfastly ignoring me. I'll be at Sarah's, I said, referring to a close friend from college. I'll come back for the rest of my stuff later. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. I knew this wasn't a permanent solution, but for now, I needed space to think and plan my next move. At least at Sarah's, I wouldn't be treated like a maid or made to feel worthless. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing: I deserve better than this. It's time I started believing that. Update: it's been about 3 months since I moved out of my family home, and I have to say, it's been a revelation. I've been staying with my friend Sarah, splitting rent and chores equally. The change in my daily life has been dramatic. Without the constant burden of all the household responsibilities, I've been able to focus on my studies and my budding career in graphic design like never before. I've completed several freelance projects, built up my portfolio, and even landed an internship at a local marketing firm. It's amazing what you can achieve when you're not exhausted from being everyone else's maid. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, doesn't it? Last week, I ran into our neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, at the grocery store. She asked how I was doing, and then, with a concerned look, asked about Mom. Apparently, she'd noticed Mom struggling with yard work and looking overwhelmed lately. I offered to help, Mrs. Johnson said, but your mother insisted she was fine. I thought maybe Emma was helping her out. I felt a pang of guilt, quickly followed by frustration. Of course, Emma wasn't helping. Why would she start now? But that wasn't even the biggest shock. Mrs. Johnson, in her well-meaning but gossipy way, dropped another bombshell. And how is Emma doing with her studies? I hope that situation with Professor Andrews hasn't affected her too much. I must have looked confused because Mrs. Johnson's eyes widened. Oh dear, I thought you knew. Emma's been seen around town with Professor Andrews quite a lot. There's been talk. I thanked Mrs. Johnson and left the store in a daze. Emma, my perfect sister, who was supposed to be focusing on her bright future in law, was fooling around with a professor. And apparently it was serious enough that the neighbors were noticing and gossiping about it. Part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. The golden child wasn't so golden after all, but mostly I felt sad. Sad for Mom, who is now struggling alone with all the chores I used to do. Sad for Emma, who is risking her future for a fling with a professor. And sad for our family, which seemed to be falling apart without me there to hold it together. I'm not sure what to do with this information. Part of me wants to reach out to try and mend fences, but another part remembers the hurt, the years of being treated as less than, and wonders if it's worth it. For now, I'm focusing on my own growth and healing. I'm learning to value myself and my chosen career path. I'm building a life where I'm respected, and my contributions are appreciated. Maybe someday Mom and Emma will realize what they've lost. Maybe they won't. But I know that I'm better off now, standing on my own 2 feet, than I ever was trying to earn their approval. Update: life has a way of coming full circle, doesn't it? 6 months later, just when I thought I had everything figured out, the universe decided to throw another curveball my way. It was a quiet Sunday evening. I was working on a freelance project when my phone rang. It was Mom. I hesitated before answering. We hadn't spoken much since I left. When I picked up, I was met with the sound of my mother sobbing uncontrollably. "Mom, what's wrong?" I asked, my heart racing. Through her tears, she managed to choke out, "Emma, she's gone. She ran away with some boy from her university, and she took most of my savings." I felt like I'd been drenched with cold water. Despite everything, Emma was still my sister, and hearing that she'd done something so reckless and hurtful was shocking. "I'm coming over," I said, already grabbing my keys. When I arrived at my childhood home, the sight nearly broke my heart. The house was a mess, nothing like the immaculate home Mom had always maintained. And Mom, she looked like she'd aged years in just a few months. As soon as she saw me, she broke down again. I held her as she cried, feeling a mix of emotions I couldn't quite sort out. When she calmed down, Mom looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I've been such a fool," she said softly. "These past few months, they've opened my eyes. I was so wrong about so many things, about Emma, about you." She took my hands in hers. "You were always the responsible one, the one I could count on, and instead of appreciating you, I took you for granted. I'm so sorry, sweetheart." I felt tears welling up in my own eyes. This was the acknowledgement I'd always wanted but never thought I'd get. "I know I don't deserve it," Mom continued, "but I need you. Would you consider coming back home? I promise things will be different." Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect myself from potentially being hurt again. But looking at Mom, vulnerable and genuinely remorseful, I knew I couldn't turn my back on her. "Okay, Mom," I said softly. "I'll come back, but things really do need to be different this time." She nodded eagerly, relief washing over her face. "They will be, I promise." So here I am, back in my childhood home. It's strange and a little uncomfortable, but also oddly comforting. Mom and I are learning to communicate better, to appreciate each other. She's taken a genuine interest in my graphic design work, even asking me to teach her some basics. We're working together to clean up the house and sort out the financial mess Emma left behind. It's not easy, but we're managing. As for Emma, we haven't heard from her. I hope she's safe, but I can't help feeling angry at her for what she's done. I'm continuing my freelance work and my internship, and Mom is respecting my time and space to do so. It's a delicate balance, but we're figuring it out day by day. I don't know what the future holds. Part of me is still wary, still protecting my heart, but another part is hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, this is the fresh start our family needed. It's not the happily ever after I might have once imagined, but it's real, and for now, that's enough.
I often wonder when I'll get over this. My fiancé and I were together for 6 years. I proposed to her during COVID, not knowing that she was already having an affair when she accepted my proposal. It's baffling, right? How can someone say yes to a marriage proposal while involved with someone else? Anyway, it's a long tale. I've been writing it out for weeks. It's like therapy for me, not really seeking advice, just trying to share my story. I'm not the most socially adept guy, especially with the ladies. But when I met my fiancée, let's call her Bess, I fell head over heels in love, in an instant. I'd never experienced love before, but I knew she was the one I wanted to spend my life with as soon as we met. Strangely, she seemed to feel the same way about me, and we were discussing kids and moving in together by the end of the week. Everything was wonderful until Discovery Day, at least from my perspective, although it clearly wasn't the same for Bess. One day, I caught a glimpse of a suspicious message on her phone, which made me pause. I couldn't sleep that night and ended up checking her phone while she was asleep. I'm quite tech-savvy, as I make a living from some mobile apps I developed. I'm not super wealthy, but I can comfortably take a year off without financial hardship. Anyway, I didn't find concrete evidence, but I did uncover a lot of suspicious activity, like deleted messages. There was also a Snapchat contact with a lot of interactions and pictures of a guy I didn't recognize. So I installed spyware to monitor her phone, opting for the most expensive service I could find, which even allowed me to remotely access the camera and microphone. The following day, Bess was scheduled to go on a 5-day business trip, which wasn't unusual given her sales job. As soon as she left, the messages started pouring in, and I was devastated, even vomiting several times. I couldn't believe what I was reading. For a while, I refused to accept the truth and became obsessed, digging into everything I could access. I discovered that their affair had started over 2 months before I proposed. Her affair partner was a colleague, a married man 10 years her senior, with 3 children and a pregnant wife. The ultimate blow was hearing them together in a hotel room, proclaiming their love for each other, and discussing running away to start a new family. I was completely shattered and didn't know how to handle it. I couldn't muster the courage to confront her directly. Ultimately, I confided in my childhood best friend. Let's call him Kay. Kay grew up in a Brazilian household, and when he and his mother moved in next door when I was 12, this was in the UK, we became close friends despite not speaking the same language initially. I guess we bonded over shared experiences. Kay and I have been inseparable since, even though I'm a shy, nerdy type, and he's outgoing and fearless. I poured my heart out to Kay and showed him the messages and emails I had uncovered. He remained silent for a while, then told me he couldn't provide specific advice. This was something I had to deal with in my own way. He shared his own story of being cheated on and how he exposed his cheating partner to family and friends, and then went no contact. I was lost for the next few days. We packed up Bess's belongings and took them to a storage unit. We changed the locks on my apartment and prepared to pick her up from the airport. When she got into the car, she seemed cheerful and unaware that something was wrong with me. I just said I wasn't feeling well. Kay smiled at her and mentioned a fantastic surprise plan for her at her parents' house. I didn't utter a single word during the entire trip, trying to hide my feelings and forcing a fake smile since Bess got in the car. The rest of the day felt like it was moving in slow motion. I'd already talked to our parents the day before and let them know we were coming over. I mentioned I had a surprise announcement to share when we got there. There were hugs, smiles, and I almost changed my mind at that point. I really care about her parents. They've been incredibly kind and welcoming to me. Soon Bess was sitting on the sofa between her parents. Eventually someone asked about the big surprise and Kay encouraged me to go ahead. I began by expressing my deep affection for her parents and how grateful I was for their warm welcome into their family. Then I got choked up for a few minutes. I had a whole speech prepared, eloquent and well-composed, but I completely forgot it, so I blurted out the truth. I revealed that Bess had been cheating on me with a coworker who had kids, and his wife was 7 months pregnant. The engagement was off, the wedding was canceled, and our relationship was over. I told Bess that her belongings were in a storage container, and I dropped the key on the floor. It was a farewell forever. I left while everyone sat there in stunned silence. I heard Kay tell them that I needed time to heal and not to contact me unless absolutely necessary. In the car, Kay suggested I post the same message on our Facebook group, where we had been planning the wedding. Everyone, including both our families and friends, posted similar messages before leaving the group. Kay kept telling me he was proud of me and that one day I'd look back and be glad I stood up for myself. But at that moment, I just felt numb. Nothing about this situation felt good or real. Our next planned stop was to visit the affair partner's wife. When she opened the door, I blurted out everything without even introducing myself. I think she even slapped me at some point. As I handed her a thumb drive with the evidence, her husband appeared from behind her. His wife immediately started yelling at him to leave and not come near her. He tried making excuses, but when he took a step forward, Kay confronted him, saying, "You heard the lady, get out." After some back and forth, he eventually packed a bag and left. Kay talked to his wife for a while I was trying to process the chaos in my own mind. In the end, we were invited inside Kay's mother's house, and we agreed to stay there until her father could pick her up the next morning. She was afraid her husband might return, and she didn't want to be alone. I felt like I had become invisible. No one acknowledged me, and I sat there crying silently. I understood her situation was much worse than mine, as I wasn't married and didn't have children. Eventually, they all fell asleep, while I continued to cry quietly. I decided I wanted to end it all. I began searching for pills, but I couldn't find any. I was struggling to comprehend the situation. Her father arrived at 5:30 in the morning, and I opened the door for him. He calmly asked me some questions and checked on my well-being before going inside to find his daughter. I just stood there holding the door. Shortly after, Kay came out to talk to me. I stared at him for a moment, then passed out. I woke up in the hospital, and it's been 3 months since all this happened. Kay stayed with me during the first few weeks after I returned home because he was worried I might attempt bad things again. I haven't spoken to my ex-fiancée since. I changed my phone number, blocked her email address, and restricted access on social media. She's come to my door many times, talking through it for hours. She apologizes and begs for forgiveness. She said she ended the affair and that the affair partner's wife reported them to HR, which resulted in her losing her job. Hey guys, this marks the end of part 1 of the story. We're about to continue with part 2, but before we do, as usual, I'd like to ask those who haven't subscribed to please click that subscribe button. Your support means a lot to us and encourages us to present stories in better ways. Now let's move on to the updates. Update. I eventually decided to talk to her parents to see if they could help stop her from coming to my door. I don't care about her reasons or what she wants. I've realized that my perception of her and who she really is are entirely different. I just want her out of my life so I can move on. Before I was ready to speak to her parents, her dad came to my door. He brought a 6-pack of my favorite beer and asked if we could talk. I agreed and told him I was on my way out, suggesting we could walk and talk. I didn't want him inside, not only because my apartment was a mess, but also because I didn't want to risk her suddenly showing up at the door. He opened 2 bottles of beer and we began to chat. Initially, he apologized on behalf of his daughter and mentioned that both his wife and daughter had pressured him to talk to me. He said his daughter was spoiled and selfish, and he hoped she would finally face the full consequences of her actions and maybe become a better person in the future. I asked him if everything was okay between us, and he assured me there were no problems. He even jokingly suggested it might be time for me to get a divorce. Apparently, their confrontation didn't go well after he met me, but this time, he was determined not to back down. It seemed like a long overdue fight for him. As for Kay, he's been a great support, as always. He's been there for me, encouraging and uplifting me. Now that I'm out of it, I realize he was right. One day I'll be proud of what I did. I stood up for myself, something I rarely do, and I feel great about it. I definitely do it again when necessary. My ex showed up at my door again, and this time, I actually talked to her. She begged me to let her in so we could talk. I agreed but told her I had some things to do and suggested we meet at a local park in half an hour. I didn't want her inside my messy place, fearing she might make accusations or something if we met alone. Surprisingly, I wasn't nervous. I actually felt pretty good. So I went to the park, and she was there, crying. We had some meaningless small talk, and she tried to pry into my conversation with her father. I told her that was private between us and none of her business. I was getting bored, so I asked her what she wanted to talk about, and she went on a long rant about how sorry she was and how much she loved me. I forgave her because I didn't want to carry anger, hatred, and hurt anymore. But getting back together is out of the question. People who love each other don't do what she did to me. She cried hysterically, and I watched without feeling much attachment. I called her dad to pick her up, and I told her I hoped she would seek counseling to fix whatever was broken inside her. Then I got an Uber and went to the local animal shelter, where I adopted a kitten. I named the kitten Shiny. Kay joked that he was blinded by my newfound confidence. I named the kitten Shiny as a reminder to always stand up for myself. I'm happy that I took the high road and was honest with her without yelling or name-calling. I've been playing with my amazing kitten and having a lot of fun. Kay is coming over later to play video games and have some beers. I'm still sad about my ex, and I'll miss the good times we had, but I'm also relieved that this chapter of my life is over. It is what it is. Be warned. This is a straightforward tale of sadness and regret. I'm Bonnie Brown, but I was born Bonnie Betsy Lowry. My parents had high hopes for me. I married Benjamin Brown, but it didn't bring me any grace, as you might expect. At 38, I made a mess of my life. Doesn't sound old, right? Well, at the time it felt like it. You know how our society idolizes youth. You work hard, take school seriously, graduate with good grades, find a good job, marry someone great, have a few kids, and just when things are looking up, the world shifts its focus to someone younger. Actually, it wasn't one specific thing. I slowly realized that the young interns at the office were getting all the attention. Men used to flirt with me, and although I didn't let them go too far, it was fun and made me feel attractive. Then one day, that attention disappeared. Life became a series of responsibilities. Work demanded more from me, and my kids needed help with their daily tasks. There were chores, bills, and countless other things. Sure, my husband helped a lot, but I still felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. In hindsight, I might have been depressed, but I can't say for sure. All I know is that I was drowning in obligations, stuck in an unchanging routine. I must have lost my mind. I'd give anything to have that life back, even just for a day, but I can't because I've lost it all, including my soul. On March 5th, a Wednesday, I was called into the director's office. In 17 days on a Monday, I had to go to New York for a week of training. It was like my company's version of management school, a sign that they saw potential for my promotion. I was on the rise, and I eagerly shared the news with my family. They were supportive, filled with questions and encouragement. I went shopping using Ben's credit card and bought new clothes for the trip. I wanted to make a lasting impression on the up-and-coming professionals from around the country. I wanted them to remember me. Well, they certainly remember me now. Sunday arrived, and I left for the airport after a quick goodbye to my family. I thought they'd understand that I'd be busy with classes and staying at the hotel. I settled into my room, met some people during dinner, and had drinks with Janet, Donna, and Jim. Jim and I even danced. It was a refreshing change from my routine, and I convinced myself it was nothing special. But the guilt crept in, so I excused myself for the night. I realized I hadn't called home, but it was too late to make that call. Despite my emotions, I stayed focused on the classes. Every evening we met at the bar for drinks. I danced with many men, but Jim held my attention. I felt youthful once more. As the nights went on, Jim and I grew closer, maybe too close. We danced for hours, and one night we never even made it back to the dance floor. We even had a passionate encounter before parting ways. I felt young and reckless, as if I had no responsibilities. Occasionally, guilt crept in, but Jim diverted my thoughts. Looking back, he offered nothing my husband couldn't provide. His kisses weren't romantic, and his voice didn't soothe. All he gave were 2 nights of passion and a quick encounter before leaving. On the flight home, returning to my life, reality wondered me hard. I had cheated on my husband, the man I loved, with a near stranger, and I did it without remorse. Worse, I did it in front of others who silently judged me, not out of jealousy, but disappointment. In just a few days, my reputation would be ruined, and I'd be labeled as promiscuous in every office nationwide. It was only a matter of time before news of my actions reached my workplace. I worried about how to keep this from Ben. Even though he wasn't particularly close to my coworkers, he did attend company events occasionally, like Christmas parties and barbecues. Sooner or later, someone would spill the beans, and then what could I do? Somebody would eventually spill the beans, and then what would I do? Even worse, what if I had contracted a disease? Dread consumed me for the rest of the flight. It felt like my fate was sealed, and it was just a matter of time before my life, my husband, my kids, and my home were all in jeopardy. I tried to think of a way to put that week behind me, but I couldn't. Adding to the stress, I didn't even have his cell phone number. He was just a man who desired me more than those young interns, someone I could enjoy for a few days without any responsibilities. From that point on, I was walking on thin ice. The plane brought me closer to my fate, and I saw no way out except to face it and deal with the consequences. I considered telling Ben and throwing myself at his mercy, but what if he couldn't forgive me? I knew I could never forgive myself if I were in his shoes. When I finally got home, I knew that Ben would want. I'd been away for nearly a week, and turning him down would hurt him. But the fear ate away at me. What if I had contracted something during that week? If I gave it to Ben, he'd surely figure it out, and I'd be worse than anyone in his eyes. My heart raced uncontrollably, and for a moment, I entertained the thought of having a heart attack, hoping it would somehow spare me from the impending disaster. But luck was not on my side. The drive home was agonizing. With every mile, it felt like I was marching toward my own doom, and I had no way to stop it. As I walked through our front door, I hoped it would still be our front door. I was greeted by the joyful cries of, "Mommy's home!" 3 children rushed to hug me, and my husband showered me with kisses. Everyone was smiling, eager to hear about my week, what I had experienced, what I had done, and what it was like. I nearly broke down right then and there, but I managed to keep my composure. What had I done? How could I tell them what I had done? I looked from child to child and saw nothing but love. My husband was thrilled by my return. Everyone was delighted to see me, and I was surrounded by love from all sides. I didn't deserve any of it. I had betrayed them all. I put on a brave face and told them all about the course, the meals, and the sights and sounds of the city. I left out the affair, how I acted in front of everyone, and my betrayal. From that evening on, I lived in fear of being discovered, and then the desire to be intimate came. I couldn't refuse without raising suspicions. I convinced myself that Jim wasn't a bad guy, that he was clean, and I resolved to be the best, most loving wife imaginable. I was determined that if Ben ever found out, his love for me would outweigh the anger and hurt, and he would forgive me. But I forgot one thing. Opus update. Fast forward 4 months, and I was starting to believe I had gotten away with it. I swore to myself I'd never repeat my mistake, never betray Ben and the kids. I was committed to being the perfect wife. Then, one day I came home, expecting to prepare dinner for the family. The house was silent. There were no voices, no activity. None of the chaos I had once taken for granted. Instead, Ben sat quietly in a chair, looking dejected, with tears streaming down his face. "Ben, what's wrong, honey? Are you okay?" "I received an email at work today. It seems you must have angered someone at your office, said something wrong, made them mad. Whatever you did, they really dislike you." "What did I do? I usually get along with everyone." "I don't know. I just got an email today with some cell phone photos of you at your training course. Remember when you went away for that week of training? It looks like you had a good time. It looks like the guy you were with had an especially good time." I heard my husband's words, and I wanted to deny everything. I wanted to tell him I loved him and only him, that there could never be anyone else for me but him. But I couldn't. My mind went blank, and I sat there with my mouth open, just staring into space. Was this the beginning of the end? Would I lose everything because of a week of foolishness, more than I had ever done before or would ever do again? Was my life as I knew it over? He had the proof. There were no pictures from inside the bedrooms, but he had photos of me doing things in public that I couldn't remember doing. He showed me the images, and pictures don't lie. I was dancing too closely with Jim, kissing him on the dance floor, and at our table. There was even a photograph of Jim's hand on my leg and up my skirt as we sat at the table. It was over. My fate was sealed. I confessed everything and begged for forgiveness. Ending number 1. I had to try. Tears in my eyes, I said, "Ben, I am so very sorry. I want you to know that nothing like this has ever happened before, and it will never happen again. Sweetheart, I love you so much. I love the life we have together. Please, please give me a second chance. I promise you won't regret it. I'll make you forget the one and only time I ever did something so stupid. You won't regret it. I promise. Believe it or not, that's exactly what my loving, amazing husband did or tried to do. He didn't ask for more details. He didn't make me recount my actions or explain why. He just sat there and cried for hours as he slowly withered inside. I held him, kissed him, and assured him of my love, pledging to take away his pain and never hurt him again. I did everything I could to keep that promise. So I mentioned that I forgot one thing, right? I forgot that when you break a man's heart, you can't always mend it. This man who loved me unconditionally, who existed to make me happy, was broken beyond repair. He never smiled again. He never laughed again. We sometimes made love, but it felt like his mind was elsewhere, imagining me with someone else. I did everything in my power to heal him, but it was never enough. The kids grew up, got jobs, and moved away. We still slept next to each other, but there was a quiet sadness in the house. Eventually, I realized that it wasn't just the physical affair that had ruined my life. I had shattered my husband's sense of self-worth, his feeling of being loved, and his belief that his life had meaning. I came to a crossroads. I could either leave him, giving him the chance to find another woman who could rebuild the man I had destroyed, or I could stay and try my best to be a loving wife, even if he never saw me the same way again. I knew that leaving would only confirm what my infidelity had told him, that he was worthless as a husband and a man. So I stayed, and I watched this wonderful man slowly crumble until there was little left of the man I had married. Somehow my kids found out what I had done. Ben never told them. He wouldn't do that to them or me. How they found out, I don't know, but they did. It created a rift between us that never fully healed. They witnessed their father's slow decline, and they knew it was all my fault. You see, I never went through with the divorce I had contemplated on that flight home all those years ago. But I lost my husband and my children just as surely and completely as if they had all left me and moved away. Oh, they left me all right, but they never physically went away. Ending number 2. So, as I mentioned, I forgot one important thing, didn't I? I failed to realize that when you break a man's heart, you irreversibly change him. The man who once loved me unconditionally, who existed to make me happy, was now beyond repair. He tried, really tried. We had conversations, I poured my heart out, and we even sought counseling. All I wanted was to see him happy again, to wipe away the pain and disappointment I had brought into his life. But 6 months later, we decided to call it quits. I would have done anything to make him happy for the rest of my life, to make him forget. However, he had nothing left. I had taken it all from him and cast it away. Ben didn't move far, and he remained a part of our lives almost every day. Yet, he was no longer my loving husband. He devoted his time and heart to our kids and remained polite to me. But the joy and love were gone. Betrayal has a way of erasing a man's view of his wife as something special and unique, transforming her into something ordinary, something to be scorned. I never remarried or dated. The man I loved stayed in my life, though at a distance, and that was enough to sustain me. Ending number 3. 6 months later, it seemed like we were on the path to recovery. Those had been 6 tough, guilt-ridden months. Life at home was far from normal, yet the anger had subsided, and both of us cried less often. I'm certain there were moments when he considered giving up, but he never did. And I wouldn't either. I was ready to apologize for the rest of my life. However, in a therapy session, there came a day when Ben turned to me with a profound sadness in his eyes and said, "You messed up, but it's time to stop now. I don't need your apologies anymore. I hope you never stop feeling remorse, but we both need to move forward." At that moment, I thought it was the end for us. The words "move forward" echoed in my mind, and I was convinced he was asking for a divorce. But then he continued, "I love you, Bonnie. I despise what you did. And if I ever see that guy again, I might want to punch him. But I want the woman I married back in my life. I want her back in my bed to see her smile and hear her laughter. I want to grow old with her. We'll never forget what happened, but we can try to forgive." Tears welled up in his eyes. The rest of that session remains a blur in my memory. I clung to my husband, hugging and kissing him, crying and thanking him over and over. I was so afraid when he started speaking that I couldn't let go of him, fearing it might be the last time. There were moments when I could see the pain in his eyes, and I understood what he was thinking. We never needed to say a word. I would simply go to him, stand beside him, or sit next to him, hugging him as if it were our last embrace, waiting until I saw him smile again. It always brought tears to my eyes, even now, because I know he carries that pain with him. I hurt this man deeply for no good reason, yet he forgave me. I will spend the rest of my life being the wife he truly deserves and offering prayers of gratitude for the second chance I received. On that significant day in August 2005, my friend, an 18-year-old high school graduate, burst into the door of our cozy two-room apartment, and I couldn't believe my incredible luck. Her lifelong dream of becoming an actress had always seemed quite achievable to me, given her undeniable beauty and exceptional talent. This was unsurprising, considering her vibrant cheerleading background and active involvement in various school drama productions throughout her school years. With her whole future ahead of her, the acting profession appeared to be a reachable reality. While my girlfriend had always been resolute about pursuing a career as an actress, I was still contemplating the direction of my own life. I wasn't particularly interested in college and was content working at McDonald's, allowing my girlfriend to take the lead. However, that day marked a turning point. Filled with excitement, she shared the news that she had secured a minor role in a highly acclaimed blockbuster film. It was an incredible development. Though she only had 2 lines to deliver, it felt like a monumental step toward fulfilling her dream. She explained that the lead role in this fantastic opportunity was being played by a regular customer from Hooters restaurant. After promising her a role, and even booking a ticket to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I unquestionably believed in the opportunity that had arisen. Despite my naivety, I refrained from asking how she had managed to land such an incredible chance. In the evening, we gathered with friends to celebrate this momentous occasion. Each moment brought us closer to the allure and grandeur of Hollywood. Eager to have me accompany her on this journey, she reached out to a mysterious sponsor who generously purchased a ticket for me as well. Her happiness was infectious, and I had never seen her so elated before. Upon arriving in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we were met with opulence. Checking into a luxurious hotel for 4 days was a thrilling experience. While my girlfriend was occupied with her scenes for 2 of those days, I didn't mind. I made the most of the opportunity, soaking up the atmosphere of stunning beaches and basking in the warm sun. The remaining days felt like an uninterrupted vacation, filled with beach excursions, lively parties, and even encounters with celebrities involved in the film production. It was like a dream come true. All of this served as motivation that fueled our desire for the glamorous lifestyle that the film industry offered. Upon returning to Pennsylvania, we couldn't shake off the allure of that world. We knew that our path led to Los Angeles, where my friend could wholeheartedly pursue her dreams in the film industry. Her time in St. Vincent and the Grenadines had allowed her to forge valuable connections with influential individuals. Furthermore, she firmly believed that upon our return to Pennsylvania, we should use the $15,300 she earned to embark on this incredible journey. Using a portion of her earnings from the film, we managed to secure a modest apartment in Los Angeles, brimming with hope and anticipation. We were stepping into a new chapter of our lives. Days turned into months, and my girlfriend faced the challenging task of securing significant film roles in this bustling city. Every morning, she woke up early and attended auditions in the hope of achieving a long-awaited breakthrough. Unfortunately, she mainly came across minor roles in local business advertisements that offered meager compensation, falling short of our expectations. As her earnings from the movie role began to dwindle, we found ourselves needing to invest in new clothing and photographs for auditions. Recognizing the need to support ourselves, I decided to take a job at a fast food restaurant. It may not have been glamorous, but it provided us with the opportunity to start earning money and sustain our livelihood. As our savings dwindled, I witnessed her hopes and dreams gradually fade in her eyes. Every evening we returned home burdened by the weight of rejections and disappointments, as she came face to face with the harsh realities and fierce competition of the film industry in Los Angeles. In our small Pennsylvania town, she had been considered the epitome of beauty. But in this sprawling city, beauty was commonplace. Months turned into nearly a year, and she still couldn't secure a substantial role for herself. The clothing she bought was now secondhand, and prospects for advancement seemed uncertain. Eventually, she took a job as a shopping mall model, a significant departure from our lofty aspirations. Nevertheless, it allowed, albeit with difficulty, for the bills to be paid. During this period, I found my own path in life as a fitness trainer. Balancing 2 jobs, one at a restaurant and the other training numerous clients, I aimed to provide stability and support. Our lives were consumed by individual pursuits, and as a result, we seldom found time for each other. Our dreams of success in the entertainment industry appeared to be slipping away, overshadowed by the demands of our busy lives. With each passing day, our dreams seemed to grow more distant. The unforgiving nature of the film and entertainment industry began to wear down my girlfriend's spirit, and I could only helplessly watch as she confronted the harsh reality that achieving success in Hollywood was far from the easy dream we had once envisioned. As time passed, her excessive spending drained our finances completely, and we began to struggle to make ends meet. I became increasingly frustrated with her for depleting our savings at an alarming rate. Finally, we managed to replenish our depleted savings. It happened unexpectedly when I was rummaging through her purse searching for something and stumbled upon a bundle of $1,500. Intrigued, I couldn't help but inquire about where she had obtained such a large sum of money. She appeared flustered, but explained that a photographer she met at the mall had invited her to take pictures at his lavish mansion. I couldn't resist asking why she hadn't mentioned it earlier, to which she replied that she had intended to, but somehow forgot. Curiosity got the better of me, and I continued my questioning, wanting to ensure the legitimacy of her earnings. She assured me that everything was fine. However, as she spoke of her best photos and posing in various outfits for professional photographers, doubt began to creep into my mind. Despite our naive understanding of the industry, I couldn't ignore suspicions about the potential for exploitation or ulterior motives. After all, we had heard stories of people in Hollywood willing to pay exorbitant sums for almost anything. I grew curious and asked her to show me the photos. To my surprise, she mentioned that producers rarely provided copies, and it would take some time before anything would be known about the photo shoots. In my naivety, I accepted her explanation without delving deeper into the matter. This situation persisted for the next 2 years. She frequently returned home late at night, attributing it to earning money by frequenting clubs and occupying VIP seats. She often claimed that her involvement in these projects was limited to gatherings in the VIP section. In other instances, she explained that some producers preferred conducting auditions and shooting scenes during the nighttime. However, as her nocturnal escapades became more frequent, a sense of unease settled within me. Worries about her safety and the company she kept began to overwhelm me. She tried to allay my concerns, arguing that she wasn't the only one engaging in such activities, and that many of her friends were compensated similarly. But suspicions persisted in my mind, causing me to question the reality of her actions. Over time, I began to take notice of the company she was keeping, which primarily consisted of individuals typically associated with the adult film industry. Yet, in my naivety, I believed they were simply models. She defended herself by explaining that she had no control over her work schedule, as producers dictated her whereabouts and responsibilities. I tried to logically assess the situation, convincing myself that some producers might genuinely prefer nighttime shoots. All of this seemed to align logically with my limited understanding of the industry. One day, while taking a smoke break near our apartment, a pivotal moment occurred that shattered my illusions. A man in a large SUV pulled up and dropped her off right in front of our house. In that moment, my views on her nocturnal adventures were called into question, leaving me stunned. Shocked by what I witnessed, I couldn't muster the courage to immediately confront her. Instead, I went inside the house and discreetly observed her through the blinds as she entered. Anxiety gripped me at that moment. With a determined decision to uncover the truth about her activities, I secretly planned to follow her the next Friday when she went out. On that Friday, she went on a date with her friends, and I quietly began trailing her. In the end, she ended up at a club with a long line outside. To my surprise, the club's promoter granted my girlfriend and her friends special privileges, allowing them to bypass the long queue and enter the establishment swiftly. In my quest for answers, I reluctantly had to bribe a bouncer generously to gain entry. Inside the club, I carefully scanned the crowd, desperately searching for her. Finally, I spotted her in the VIP section, chatting animatedly and enjoying drinks with her friends. It seemed to match her earlier explanation, and I lingered there for a while. As I began to grow tired and prepare to leave, doubts about the man in the SUV still nagged at me. But those doubts quickly vanished when I realized it was just an Uber Black, and I felt foolish for suspecting betrayal. After scolding myself for being paranoid, I convinced myself that everything was fine and returned to my normal routine. At the time, I worked as a fitness trainer and also dabbled in multi-level marketing, selling dietary supplements and insurance. Thankfully, my average earnings covered rent and my living expenses. When I took charge of managing my own finances, I couldn't help but notice changes in my girlfriend's behavior and appearance. She became more secretive about her financial matters, which raised concerns for me. Occasionally, she displayed aggression toward me, only to apologize later, claiming it was unintentional. Furthermore, she started concealing her finances and paid less attention to her spending, leaving me questioning her financial habits. Despite initially trying to brush these concerns aside, I couldn't ignore the significant decline in her financial stability. She began losing a considerable amount of weight, hardly ate, showed signs of excessive nervousness, and experienced sleep problems. She often slept for extended periods, causing me to worry about her well-being. In my attempt to address her health issues, I made sure she ate properly, attributing her behavior to stress. However, one night as I woke up, I noticed she wasn't in our bed. Baffled, I followed the noise coming from the bathroom, driven by anxiety. To my horror, I discovered my girlfriend using a prohibited substance in the bathroom. I stumbled upon a stash of illegal substances which caught her by surprise. In a panic, she attempted to hide everything but ended up spilling it on the floor. Her desperate actions to salvage the substances resembled a beggar clutching at scattered money. It marked a turning point in our relationship. Overwhelmed by emotions, both of us broke down in tears. She sincerely apologized and pledged to seek help and undergo rehabilitation immediately. It felt as though she had journeyed to Los Angeles, but lost not only herself, but also our connection along the way. Unflinchingly addressing her issues, she bravely kept her promise and checked into a rehabilitation center the very next day. Throughout her month-long stay at the clinic, she displayed genuine remorse and determination, clinging to the hope of overcoming this dark phase and resurrecting her dream. When she completed her rehabilitation program and returned home, she appeared revitalized and filled with newfound strength and resolve. A wave of relief washed over me. Her return was particularly significant as my birthday approached. We had a tradition of going all out for each other's birthdays, always striving to outdo ourselves and create unforgettable celebrations. One day she came home, casually tossing her purse next to me, and went to the bathroom. Curiosity got the better of me, and a few days before my birthday, I decided to search her bag. To my astonishment, I stumbled upon a CD labeled Pilot, and excitement and anticipation surged through me. Without hesitation, I popped it into the DVD player, eager to discover its contents, anticipating it might be a surprise related to me, or perhaps footage of a screen test she attended. I was utterly shocked and filled with anger as the unexpected truth unfolded on the screen. The video showed my girlfriend engaging in intimate activities with another man. It was an image I could hardly fathom. Overwhelmed by emotions, I stormed into the bathroom where she was showering, venting my anger and demanding an immediate explanation for her involvement in such actions. As she emerged from the shower, I noticed she was trembling, and she offered heartfelt apologies. She admitted that what I witnessed was initially meant as a one-time encounter, but had spiraled out of control. I could scarcely comprehend her words. Confused and in search of clarity, I asked her how long she had been involved in this industry. Reluctantly, she confessed that it had been ongoing for over a year. My confusion deepened when she struggled to provide an exact count of how many times she had participated in such activities. Citing the frequency blurred the boundaries and made it hard to keep track. What struck me even more was that the dates and timestamps on the videos coincided with the period when I believed she was in a rehabilitation center seeking help, not pursuing adult films for financial gain. Determined to rebuild my life, I cut off all contact with my ex-girlfriend and focused on my career as a fitness trainer and my involvement in multi-level marketing. Unfortunately, the latter turned out to be a pyramid scheme that was eventually shut down by authorities, dashing my hopes. Undeterred, I decided to invest my savings in opening a gym. However, the high expenses in California posed a significant challenge. Opting to join the Planet Fitness franchise, I seized the opportunity to open a small gym in my Pennsylvania hometown before leaving California. Wanting to be transparent, I reached out to my ex-girlfriend to inform her of my departure. Despite our breakup 6 months earlier, our connection remained strong, and our phone conversation stirred up emotions in both of us. She spoke of feeling abandoned, emphasizing that I had brought her to California and then abandoned her when she needed me most. Her words left me speechless, and I found myself immersed in memories of our shared youth and the dreams we once held together. Having made the decision to return to my hometown, I took the initiative to establish the Planet Fitness Center. As the business began to thrive, I also found solace in close relationships that brought joy and fulfillment back into my life. However, over time I heard unsettling rumors that my ex-girlfriend had turned to a life of street-based solicitation to support her illegal substance use. Initially skeptical, I decided to investigate and discover the truth firsthand. What I uncovered left me utterly shocked. The person I once knew had become a mere shell, devoid of the vibrant soul I had cherished. About 2 years after the opening of my gym, the situation took an unexpected turn. Everything had been going smoothly for me. The membership at my gym kept growing and it seemed like life was on a positive trajectory. But then, an unexpected and devastating piece of news reached me. My ex-girlfriend had passed away while with a client, having consumed an excessive amount of a prohibited substance. The moment I received this heart-wrenching information, chills ran down my spine, and I rushed home. Unable to contain my emotions, I sat on the shower floor, overcome by uncontrollable grief and tears. To this day, I still carry guilt and never cease to wonder if I could have done something differently. Despite reassurances from my therapist, pain and regret continue to weigh heavily on my heart. My wife, Sherry, believed I was unaware of her plans. thinking I was either foolish or oblivious to her growing affair with her coworker Todd. She assumed I'd tolerate her actions and accept her continuing to be involved with him. However, she had another thing coming. She didn't realize I'd been suspicious for quite some time. I noticed changes, clear signs of infidelity, like working late frequently, upgrading her wardrobe, more aggressive closeness, and a loss of interest in our shared interests. Despite my attempts to discuss my concerns, she consistently ignored them. Sherry, naturally, denied anything was wrong, attributing it to my insecurities and possessiveness working overtime. I had no choice but to hire a private investigator. I refused to remain blind to the truth. I'd made it clear from the beginning of our relationship, and reiterated it over our 10-year marriage, that I would never tolerate my wife cheating on me. So it was with mixed feelings that I sat in private investigator Jake Sloan's office and listened to his report. I felt relieved when he made it clear that Sherry hadn't cheated. However, that relief was short-lived when he added the term, "for now." As he explained, my wife was having an affair. It just hadn't escalated to something intimate, but it was only a matter of time. Apparently, Sherry and Todd referred to themselves as working spouses. I detested that term. Sherry had only one spouse, me. Some might find that expression cute and harmless, but to me, it meant she was having an intimate relationship with someone else. Well, as it turns out, that's exactly what she was having. According to the private investigator's report, Sherry and Todd had lunch together daily, just the two of them. They held hands and sat next to each other. He provided numerous photos of them hugging, sometimes even kissing. I was infuriated by what I saw and wanted to strangle that smug idiot Todd. In addition to lunches, the lovers often worked late together, even though there was no good reason for it. It was as if they wanted to avoid going home to their respective spouses and siphon as much of our time out of each day as possible. The detective told me that he was able to trace Sherry's emails and messages. I knew this was completely illegal and I could never use it in a divorce. In our state, divorce for infidelity was possible but difficult. No-fault divorces were much easier, and I didn't need evidence for that anyway. I just wanted it for my own purposes. Sloan refused to give me copies of the actual messages. He wouldn't even let me see them. Instead, he offered me a summary of what they contained. He assured me that my wife had never spoken disparagingly of me. Several times Todd tried to disparage me, but Sherry wouldn't let him. Well, I guess it could have been worse. Emails and texts confirmed their romantic relationship. Although neither of them professed love, their conversations were very intimate, bordering on texting. Todd sent my wife pictures of his buddy, which she took delight in reciprocating with shots of her bare chest. As far as Sloan could tell, she hadn't sent any explicit pictures yet. As I sat in his office pondering my next steps, Sloan gave me the worst news of all. Todd's wife was going out of town for 3 days to visit her mother. The lovers decided to take the opportunity to meet up and consummate their relationship. The only thing standing in their way was me. They were uncertain about how they could spend the night together if I remained in the vicinity. Since I had no intention of leaving town, making it nearly impossible, they contemplated various plans. One idea was to inform me that Sherry was going on a girls-only weekend trip, fearing I might discover the truth by talking to her friends. However, she didn't want to involve anyone to create a believable cover story, leading to the abandonment of that idea. Another option they considered was compelling me to leave town, but I dismissively remembered Sherry suggesting I organize a golf trip with my buddies, an option I rejected. Ultimately, they opted for a new but direct approach: honesty. Todd believed I was on the path to becoming a betrayed man and that I would do anything to keep Sherry as my loving, happy wife, even allowing her to have an affair. Somehow, he convinced Sherry that by sleeping with him, she would enhance our lovemaking life and relationship. He persuaded her that all she needed to do was disclose her plans with Todd to me, and I would reluctantly agree to let her proceed. Clearly, Todd underestimated my resolve, but what surprised me the most was that Sherry bought into his deceptive narrative. It should have been evident to her that I wouldn't tolerate this, and if she failed to realize that, then she might be mentally unstable. Sloan informed me that this was all the information they had, so I accepted what he provided and went home. I requested him to continue monitoring Sherry's messages and update me if anything changed. On Friday, Sloan called me and informed me that Sherry planned to meet me the following Monday after work. She intended to disclose that she would go on a date with Todd on Friday night, starting with dinner and dancing and culminating with the couple spending the night in a hotel room. She would thoughtfully return to my house on Saturday or maybe Sunday, depending on their activities. Sherry and Todd rehearsed her entire speech, convincing themselves that I would acquiesce to her demands. They anticipated my initial upset and anger, but Sherry planned to assure me that it was a one-time thing, despite both knowing otherwise. She even suggested having lovemaking with me afterward as a reward for my understanding, assuming I would be pleased to have Todd's sloppy seconds and comply with her wishes. How considerate of them to think of my needs. With only 2 days to prepare for the confrontation, Sherry and Todd jokingly referred to it as an intervention. However, I was determined to turn their intervention into my stand. Over the weekend, I contemplated various scenarios, pondering whether I wanted to salvage my marriage. My plan of action evolved organically as I considered my feelings for Sherry. I decided to confront the issue directly and end it for good. Initially blissfully happy when we first got married, Sherry and I spent all our time together, sharing everything we had experienced in life. She was my best friend and my best lover, but somehow it all seemed to disappear. Perhaps that's just the way things work. Nothing lasts forever. Maybe my view of marriage was old-fashioned and idealized, envisioning us as a team facing life's trials and tribulations together. Having experienced unsuccessful marriages before, Sherry and I questioned whether the problem lay with us or the institution of marriage itself. How can people expect to maintain feelings, desires, interests, and passions when fate insists on being fickle and changing everything and everyone? In a world of fast-paced culture, social media, and instant gratification, perhaps marriage, like dinosaurs and CDs, is obsolete. Briefly considering the idea of letting Sherry be with Todd, I quickly dismissed it, refusing to let him claim rights to my wife. I was ready for a fight when my wife called me just after lunch on Monday. "Hey, Sherry," I said, noting her recent lack of calls during my work hours. I expressed my concern about it and hoped everything was okay. She greeted me with a "Hi, honey," which made me wonder if she used the same endearment with Todd. Despite the thought, I brushed it off and inquired about her being home on time tonight, as she had something important to discuss. Responding positively, I mentioned having important news as well, and confirmed my availability around 5:15. However, she didn't respond immediately, and I sensed her motive for asking. When she asked about the nature of my big news, I decided to keep it for our later face-to-face conversation. I excused myself, citing the urgency of my monthly report, and hung up. I then informed my boss about taking the rest of the day off, and he didn't mind. Sitting at the kitchen table later, I anxiously awaited her arrival. The garage door opened at 5:27, and despite my high emotions, I maintained a calm exterior. I had an open bottle of Sauvignon Blanc on ice and 2 glasses ready. She entered alone, tossing her keys and purse on the table, and I felt relieved she hadn't brought Todd along, which would have complicated things. I welcomed her with a smile. "Hi, sweetheart," I greeted her warmly, using the affectionate term she had employed earlier. I welcomed her home and asked whether she needed some time before our conversation or if she preferred to dive right in. My immediate desire to talk took her by surprise, and I could tell she wasn't prepared for it so soon. My goal was to keep her in suspense and maintain the upper hand. Acknowledging her surprise at my readiness to talk, Sherry admitted she hadn't expected me to wait. Nevertheless, she agreed that starting our conversation sooner would be better and joined me at the table. I proposed the idea of sharing my news first and inquired if she had any objections. Hesitantly, she responded, indicating that it was okay and expressing a slight uncertainty. Without waiting for her response, I poured us both a glass of wine. She accepted it gratefully, drinking half before I refilled her glass. Starting to discuss my thoughts on the matter, I conveyed that I had been reflecting on it a lot. I made it clear that I wouldn't beat around the bush and saw no point in dragging it out. Pausing deliberately to create tension, I observed Sherry stepping forward, her gaze fixed on me. Curious, she asked, "What's the matter?" I conveyed my desire for a divorce, stating it bluntly and allowing a few moments for Sherry to grasp the message. Initially, confusion clouded her face, as if the words weren't registering. Eventually, understanding dawned, and she reacted with shock. Fear and anxiety briefly flickered across her expression, quickly replaced by surprise, perhaps stemming from concerns about her affair with Todd being exposed. In response to her query about the reason, I disclosed that my feelings had changed, expressing, "I don't love you anymore." My words appeared to affect Sherry deeply. Struggling to comprehend my statement, she questioned, "You what?" "I've fallen out of love with you, Sherry," I declared, sharing the fabricated detail that I couldn't recall the exact moment. In truth, I was well aware it had been a long time, but I had avoided confronting the reality. Perplexed, she asked, "What are you talking about?" Her expression hinted at an impending emotional breakdown, catching me off guard. In an attempt to illustrate my perspective, I prompted her to recall the early days of our marriage. Reminiscing about our shared activities and routines, I highlighted the close bond we once had. Sherry nodded in agreement as I continued, mentioning our joint lunches, the anticipation of returning home to each other, and shared hobbies, including the pottery classes she had persuaded me to join. Her intense gaze indicated she was captivated by the memories. It wasn't about the pottery, it was about sharing the experience with her. She expressed that she loved every minute of it, watching me and assisting me. She admired my enthusiasm. Similarly, painting the Christmas Village buildings became a shared activity we enjoyed. We purchased a dozen unpainted houses, creating a display for Christmas. It was a tedious task, but we found pleasure in it. Sherry admitted that mine were always better than hers. Recalling the night spent at the table applying paint to the shingles, Sherry nodded in agreement. Back then, I loved her deeply. We also dedicated hours to painting large posters she had acquired during a trip to Myrtle Beach, long before adult coloring books became popular. Although we still had hundreds of coloring pens, they, like our love, had all dried up. When Sherry defensively asserted that her love hadn't dried up, I chose to ignore her and continued. Our friends often expressed jealousy over our relationship. We did everything together, taking long walks daily while holding hands. If I needed to run errands, such as going to the hardware store for grass trimmer line, she would accompany me. Similarly, if she wanted to shop for clothes, I would patiently wait outside the dressing room. Sherry challenged me, noting that I didn't enjoy accompanying her during shopping trips. I explained that I was often on my phone, not particularly interested in the clothes, but rather there to be with her. I emphasized that I didn't mind what she chose, finding her beautiful in everything. I mentioned that I could have stayed home watching sports, but chose to be with her instead. We discussed how other women in the neighborhood gathered for activities like bingo or bachelorette parties, but Sherry never showed interest. Recalling her reason for not participating, I acknowledged her previous comment about preferring to hang out with me than with the chickens. Reflecting on our shared moments, we remembered cuddling under the covers on many nights, watching a favorite movie. Sherry, wiping a tear away, expressed her love for the film. I mentioned that we must have watched it at least 100 times, and expressed a desire to continue watching it together. In response to my mention of divorce, Sherry exclaimed her reluctance to end the marriage. She envisioned growing old together, taking cooking and ballroom dancing lessons, or simply lying in bed and reading books. Expressing the growing estrangement between us, I admitted uncertainty about when it began, looking intently into her eyes. We transitioned from dining out 2 or 3 days a week to a weekly occurrence, a change largely influenced by Sherry. She claimed a lack of time for lunch outside the office, which turned out to be untrue. She continued eating out, but with someone else. Eventually, we ceased having lunch together entirely, and I started joining my coworkers. I gradually found enjoyment in their company, perhaps even too much. In the conversation, I exaggerated the situation, making an effort not to place blame solely on Sherry. I wanted to avoid triggering defensiveness or turning the discussion into a scolding. That wasn't my goal, at least not yet. Our habit of coming home early to spend time together lost its significance. We began working later and later, and when we finally did return home, we often felt distant or distracted. Responding to Sherry's question about why I never talked about it, I acknowledged that she was right. Despite having expressed these concerns many times before, I agreed with her, expressing a wish to understand why spending time together hadn't been important for her. I admitted feeling a sense of failure in that regard. I felt like I was taking responsibility for our estrangement. That was far from the truth. I knew that if I hit Sherry with Todd first, we couldn't end the discussion without it getting nasty. I would never make her see my side of things. I'd be the controlling, jealous idiot before I revealed what I knew. I wanted her to remember what we had and think about her role in destroying it. Gradually, we stopped doing almost everything together. You started going to your bachelorette parties, I started going to poker nights, you'd go to spas on the weekends, I'd go golfing. Sherry and I began to spend entire days without discussing anything beyond the weather or the latest news. Our lovemaking life also suffered, with fatigue or lack of interest often hindering our closeness. Reflecting on our early days of marriage, I pointed out how we couldn't get enough of each other. We used to engage in intimate activities 4 or 5 days a week, sometimes multiple times a day. I mentioned playfully fondling her while she cooked, skipping dinner to spend the night together. Activities like going to the hot tub, which used to be a regular part of our routine, had become non-existent for over a year. When Sherry suggested that I didn't want lovemaking anymore, I refuted the idea, finding it baseless. I believed she might be trying to shift blame onto me to justify her own behavior. In response, I laughed and clarified, "Oh God, no, I never stopped wanting lovemaking. I'm just as eager now as I was 10 years ago. I simply stopped wanting lovemaking with you." I knew that would hurt deeply. She thought she had rejected me physically, and here I was telling her that our lack of lovemaking was because I didn't want her. I almost would have laughed if I hadn't been so hurt. "Sherry, taken aback, asked what I meant when I mentioned she didn't want to have lovemaking with me. I casually mentioned losing interest and described how, from my perspective, she seemed unresponsive and disinterested in anything exciting or remotely naughty. I suggested that it appeared as though she wanted to finish quickly and move on to more interesting activities like knitting. Expressing my desire for weekend lovemaking marathons, I emphasized that she didn't even want me to give her an incredible pleasure. I labeled our physical encounters as boring and claimed that I had faked enjoyment in the last few instances just to get it over with. When Sherry objected, claiming that I came inside her, I reminded her that she insisted on using contraceptives, despite being on birth control. I explained that she never paid attention to the contraceptives, making it easy for me to fake it by humming, rolling off, and disposing of the empty contraceptive. Her reaction was one of shock and embarrassment, and I admitted that my plan had worked. Apologizing, I added insult to injury by suggesting, "It was me, not you." She stared at me for a moment, her face flushed, tears dried. I wasn't sure if her expression reflected anger, frustration, or embarrassment. In an attempt to ease the tension, I refilled her empty glass, and she took a big sip. Continuing, I explained that it was only a matter of time before we started seeking companionship elsewhere. I clarified that when I said someone else, I didn't mean myself, though she wasn't aware of that distinction. Suddenly, Sherry asked angrily if I was cheating on her or in love with someone else. In response, I reassured her of my commitment to our marriage and emphasized my aversion to infidelity. I acknowledged our shared history of being betrayed by our previous spouses, expressing my dedication to not repeating those mistakes. Sherry apologized, recognizing the unfair accusation and agreeing that she knew I wouldn't engage in such behavior. However, she looked guilty and couldn't meet my gaze, her hands trembling. Transitioning to the topic of our intimate relationship, I suggested waiting until after the divorce to be together for the first time, hinting at a new love interest. I then revealed my big news, stating that I had met with my lawyer and finalized the paperwork. I informed her that she would be served with divorce papers on Friday. In response to her desperate inquiry, I reiterated that she would indeed be served on Friday, attempting to conceal a smile. I explained that it was for the best, allowing both of us to regain our freedom and acknowledge that the last 10 years had been a waste of our time. I expressed that the past years weren't a waste of time for me, and suggested to Sherry that she likely desired the divorce as much as I did. I mentioned that it seemed she hadn't wanted to be with me for a long time, labeling our wedding as a mistake. Sherry objected, expressing her unwillingness to get a divorce. She insisted that she loved me and wanted to be married forever. Regrettably, I responded that I no longer loved her, citing the no-fault divorce state we were in. I explained that splitting assets equally was the norm, and we could avoid a messy legal process unless one of us cheated and infidelity could be proven, which was unlikely in our case. I proposed dividing our money equally, planning to visit the bank the next day. I mentioned the need to open new accounts, get new credit cards, change utility bills, and sell the house, with a realtor scheduled to put it on the market on Wednesday. Sherry, feeling overwhelmed, objected, expressing uncertainty and asking me to stop. She cried again as I assured her that I had already packed my things and would be staying in a hotel until a permanent move. I suggested she stay in the house until it was sold. Sherry shouted for me to wait, but I insisted there was no need, emphasizing the urgency to handle everything before Friday. Confused, she demanded to know the significance of that particular day. I casually mentioned that Friday was the day she had planned a date with Todd, her boyfriend. I suggested it was the day they intended to spend the night in a hotel together for a passionate evening. Sherry froze, her eyes wide and mouth agape. As she attempted to respond, I pulled out a folder containing a summary report from a private investigator. I showed her the section detailing her plans with Todd on Friday night. Interrupting her, I pointed out that the report confirmed their reservations at the Gaylord Texas for that night. When she started to explain, I cut her off, mockingly suggesting she might claim, "It's not what it looks like." I reminded her of the pictures capturing her and Todd kissing at lunch. Staring at me, tears streaming down her face, Sherry apologized quietly. With a wide smile on my face, I declared, "Now I remember exactly when I stopped loving you." I revealed that it was the day I discovered her plans to involve me in a betrayed man scenario, mirroring the betrayal from my ex-wife. She blurted out an apology, desperately trying to convince me that she didn't love Todd. According to her, the rendezvous with him was just a fling to rekindle our relationship. She assured me that after spending the night with Todd, we would spend the rest of the weekend having passionate love-making. She claimed Todd said it would turn me on and revitalize our sensuality. I countered, expressing my skepticism about revitalizing our lovemaking life by being with someone else instead of having it with me. I questioned the logic behind her actions. She attempted to change tactics, mentioning that Todd said I would be okay with it if it made her happy. I reiterated that I wanted her to be happy with me as we used to be, not with another man. I couldn't fathom how she thought I would be okay with such a proposition, given my clear stance against infidelity. She tried to justify her actions by claiming it wouldn't be infidelity since she would have my permission. Firmly, I stated that it would never happen, realizing that I should have understood that from the beginning. I expressed my disbelief at how I could have allowed boredom and loneliness to lead me down this path. I admitted that Todd had sparked my interest again. In response to her questioning how I could be bored and lonely when we were happily in love, I acknowledged that I didn't know. She continued, suggesting that I might have felt that way because I cut us off, stopped having lunch with her, and avoided spending time together. She accused me of choosing to put myself in that position and spending time with Todd instead of her, creating a situation where both Todd and I were bored and lonely. She denied the accusation, insisting that she couldn't believe she would have intentionally distanced herself. She recounted how I had told her I was too busy for lunch, and on one occasion, I had even texted her to go without me. She believed it was my decision for us to stop having lunch, and I never mentioned it, which she thought indicated I didn't realize the change. Sherry expressed that I had been so absorbed in my world with Todd that I didn't notice I was losing her. She declared that she didn't want Todd. She wanted me and us to be the way we used to be. Apologizing, she admitted to screwing up and giving up on us. I insisted it was too late, shaking my head in disagreement. Sherry pleaded, promising to quit her job, work elsewhere, and never see Todd again. She professed her love for me and claimed she hadn't cheated because they didn't have lovemaking. She acknowledged her foolishness, stating that Todd meant nothing to her and begging me not to leave. I maintained that it wasn't that simple, disagreeing when she said I stopped her before she went too far. I argued that just lovemaking would have sealed the deal. Sherry protested, saying they were just friends, and I countered, emphasizing that she should have been friends with me more than anyone else. Overwhelmed, Sherry dropped her head in her arms, sobbing, and vowed never to neglect me or take me for granted again. Sherry pleaded with me, asking if we could treat the situation as a big mistake and begging for forgiveness. I responded, stating that it wasn't just a mistake but a betrayal of our love. She insisted that her heart had always been mine, and I was the one who was willing to give my body to another man. I reminded her that she stopped me and questioned if my love for her was so insignificant that I couldn't fight for it. Expressing that she meant everything to me and that I'd fight for her, Sherry claimed she would die for me. I harshly declared my lack of affection, causing her to scream and attempt to pull me towards her. Despite her apologies and pleas, I asserted that while I believed she was sorry, it didn't change the fact that I no longer loved her. I assured her that she had Todd for comfort. Upon her revelation that Todd was married and only interested in a physical relationship, I grinned and suggested that his wife might have something to say about that. I informed her that both Todd's wife and I had used the same divorce attorney, handing her a folder containing the investigator's report, pictures of her with Todd, and details of the divorce proposal. I advised her to read the entire document. Sherry pleaded with me not to take such actions, suggesting that if I wanted to accompany her to the bank, I should call and let her know. I got up from the table and walked out of the house, ignoring the sound of my wife crying. Update. Sherry grappled with the divorce, and to avoid a prolonged and expensive legal battle, I agreed when the judge recommended marriage counseling. The counseling surpassed my expectations, fostering open and judgment-free communication between Sherry and me. She gained insight into why Todd's advances nearly jeopardized our marriage, and I conveyed the pain and humiliation she had caused. The counselor took pride in our progress. After a few sessions, I returned home, and we shared several passionate moments. Sherry willingly embraced my desires erotically. A year later, we had rekindled the loving connection we shared at the onset of our marriage. Sherry switched jobs and joined my company. We commuted together, had lunch daily, not out of obligation but genuine desire. In fact, we did nearly everything together. We adorned a small Christmas tree, completed abandoned paintings, took up another ceramics class, and enrolled in ballroom dancing. To my surprise, a box of colored pens I found wasn't dry. One night while cuddling under a blanket and watching You've Got Mail, Sherry kissed me and conveyed the need to discuss something important. Tears welled in her eyes, causing a moment of panic as my heart skipped a beat. Without giving me a chance to respond, Sherry revealed, "You're going to be a daddy." I smiled, wiped away her tears, and in a playful manner mimicked Tom Hanks saying, "Don't cry, Sellers." So I'm just obsessed with happy endings.
All right, that was a fun story. Now let's move on to another exciting one. Stay tuned and let's dive in.
I'm Bob, a 48-year-old trucker. Once I had a blissful marriage, but everything changed in an instant, causing me to lose not only my family, but also my job, and the house I purchased with my savings a decade ago. I'm prepared to share how my wife's betrayal altered my life as a truck driver. The road has become my second abode, where hours behind the wheel blend into an endless stream. Scenery passes like mist, with new people and places emerging continually. At times, I've had to sleep in the cabin, wrapped in a blanket against the cold. Endless traffic jams from accidents or construction disrupt my journey, yet stopping at a motel for the night, enjoying a hot shower, and sinking into a soft bed provides solace. Trucking presents both challenges and opportunities. Through this job, I provided a good life for my wife Melissa and our beloved daughter Nancy. I aimed to be home as much as possible, though long-haul trips often caused me to miss important events. Nevertheless, they always welcomed me eagerly upon my return. At home, Nancy would rush to me with cries of joy, wrapping me in tight hugs and sharing every detail. Melissa greeted me warmly with a smile and delicious dinner. Despite the long journeys, it's difficult to say our relationship was joyful. I married Melissa upon learning of her sudden pregnancy, feeling I had little choice. She was studying to be a nurse and didn't want to drop out of college, so I took up trucking to support our family and her education. While the job kept me from spending much time with Melissa, respect and care endured. When Nancy was born, my life underwent a dramatic change, and I found true love in my darling daughter. She brought light to my life amid countless roads and passing landscapes outside my truck window. I returned home, not just for creature comforts, but for the joy of seeing Nancy. She always greeted me first, and holding her tight revived me after exhausting weeks. We cherished our time together, visiting the zoo, riding carnival rides, and playing games. I shared stories of my travels, and she confided in me. Even when away, she missed me terribly, calling every evening before bed. I knew my hard work ensured Nancy's comfort and happiness. Her love inspired me to endure the challenges of trucking. Now 18 and beginning college, Nancy appears grown up, but she'll always be my little girl. Even when I return home late at night, she greets me with a smile and warm hug, a cherished tradition. Melissa isn't home due to her night shifts at the hospital, not expecting my return. After work, I shed my jacket and shoes, heading to the kitchen for a meal and some tea. Nancy kindly warms up food in the microwave and sets the kettle on as I recount my trip to Oregon. I share tales of the rugged cliffs, stunning Crater Lake, Smith Rock State Park, the enchanting Toketee Falls, and the majestic Mount Hood. I express the desire to take the whole family there for a vacation to revel in the breathtaking scenery and nature together. Listening silently, Nancy refrains from commenting on my proposal. "So, how have you and Mom been without me?" I inquire with a grin, anticipating their longing for my return. To my surprise, Nancy's eyes brim with tears. "What's wrong?" I ask, alarmed. I've always struggled with others' tears, especially my daughter's. Suddenly she sobs and embraces me, burying her head against my chest as she did when she was younger. "It's been tough at home without you," Nancy whispers. Her words startle me. It appears that while I've been traversing the long, monotonous roads, my wife has been entertaining a stranger at home. Iron, as he's called, claims to be a co-worker and friend, but his presence unsettles Nancy. He behaves inappropriately, lounging shirtless, propping his feet on the couch, laughing loudly, and making crude jokes. He helps himself to others' belongings without permission, rifling through my books, tools in the garage, and kitchen cabinets. Despite Nancy's requests for him to respect their property, he dismisses her concerns with laughter. His presence makes Nancy feel unsafe in her own home, turning it into the abode of an unwelcome guest who behaves as if he owns the place. When he visits, Nancy locks herself in her room, but his booming laughter and conversations with her mom still reach her ears. She's deeply troubled by her mother's sudden disregard for their once orderly, cozy, and harmonious home in the presence of a stranger. Matters escalate when Nancy reveals that this man enters her room unannounced, rummages through her belongings, and asks intrusive questions about her personal life. He also makes inappropriate comments about her appearance. Despite Nancy's attempts to discuss the issue with her mother and requests to stop inviting this person, her pleas fall on deaf ears. Since his arrival, her mother has neglected Nancy, focusing solely on him. In my mind's eye, I picture my return, longing to restore the tranquility of our home. I vow not to tolerate such behavior under my roof. Suspicions of my wife, Melissa, cheating with another man send shockwaves through me, igniting a storm of anger and fury. Though tempted to release my pent-up rage by smashing or breaking something, Nancy's fearful gaze tempers my anger momentarily. I resolve to handle the situation tactfully, planning to catch my wife red-handed and confront the intruder who dares to invade my home and pester my daughter. I message Melissa, feigning a delay on the road and booking a nearby motel room just a block away. The plan is simple. If the lover returns, Nancy will alert me, and I'll rush back immediately. Thankfully, I didn't have to wait long. Just 2 days later, my daughter phoned, and I rushed home to confront the situation. Trying to contain my trembling from the surge of tension and adrenaline, I stealthily entered the house through the back door, heading straight for the bedroom where laughter and voices could be heard. After a tense moment of anticipation, the bedroom door burst open, crashing against the wall. Caught in the act, the lover and my wife were locked in a kiss, abruptly interrupted by my arrival. There was no denying my wife's infidelity now. Melissa appeared startled, almost unable to comprehend my sudden appearance. The intruder, clad only in pants, glared at me with suspicion and irritation, demanding to know who I was in a rude manner. Acting as though I was the intruder, I replied with my fist connecting solidly with his face. The following moments were a blur of red-hot fury. My fists flew, finding their target on his face, ribs, and gut. Eventually, the man collapsed unconscious on the floor. Breathing heavily, I turned to face Melissa. Her expression was one of shock and horror. "What have you done?" she whispered bitterly, tears welling in my eyes, overwhelmed by feelings of betrayal and loneliness. After the initial shock wore off, Melissa called for an ambulance. The agonizing minutes of waiting felt like an eternity until the sound of sirens finally approached. Paramedics quickly attended to the unconscious man, taking him away on a stretcher. Melissa and I accompanied him to the hospital, where he was admitted for observation, leaving us to wait outside, feeling incredibly awkward in each other's presence. Sitting in silence, I replayed the events of the evening in my mind. Why had I finally confronted my wife? We talked extensively that night. She confessed to feeling unloved for a long time, with my constant absence due to work and my focus on our daughter. She harbored jealousy towards our daughter and craved affection herself. Despite living under the same roof, our busy schedules kept us apart, leaving her feeling lonely and neglected. The lover provided a temporary escape from her mundane life, offering companionship in her solitude. Fortunately, his injuries were not severe, diagnosed as a concussion. Following that fateful night, Melissa and I decided to part ways. Our marriage, built more on obligation than love, had been fractured for some time. We initiated divorce proceedings and divided our assets equally. For me, it was a heavy blow. Despite years of dedication, our marriage never achieved the happiness I longed for. Letting go of a relationship filled with painful memories was difficult. However, for the sake of our daughter, I knew I had to move forward. Melissa relocated to another city where she began anew, eventually finding love again and remarrying. Though forgiving my ex-wife wasn't easy, for Nancy's sake, we maintained civility. While Nancy visited her mother occasionally, she always felt like a stranger in her new family. Her true home remained with me, where she was genuinely cherished. Despite life's trials, our bond grew stronger, and we found true happiness in each other's company.